Your levels still feel pretty good?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
I'll need these for the Q&As.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Purpose and Passion Podcast. This is episode 9. And the last 2 in a row have been by myself. As you guys know, New Hampshire isn't under lockdown, but we're all practicing quarantine or essential traveling and all that. So the last 2 I've done have been solo, and they've been incredibly difficult. They've been pretty hard to sit here alone in my studio.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And stare off at the wall and try to stay on track. I bunny trail so easily anyway, even when I'm standing in a circle of friends. I find myself that, how did I get talking about this? And to sit here alone and try to stay on track, but also flow and try to think of somebody in their car listening to this, or exercising, listening to this, or just sitting down listening to it. I try to think about that while I'm sitting here recording this, and I'm like, oh no, this is a complete disaster. Because I'm like trying to keep dead space to a minimal if I'm like trying to think about what I'm going to say next, but I'm also trying to stay on track subject wise too. And
Yeah.
I've realized that it takes a lot to be not just a solo podcaster, but anyone who does any sort of like radio, or, I mean, I guess it's difficult when it's a 1 take 2-hour thing.
Right.
Whereas if you were like doing radio.
Yeah, just between songs.
Yeah.
They talk slower anyways. You know what I mean? They kind of fill up the minute between a song. And
a lot of that stuff is regurgitated stuff like, hey, it's so-and-so, it's 3:00, 10 after the hour, and we're going to be kicking it off with some more oldies. I feel like if I was a radio personality, I would talk with a weird voice, and you have to be like captivating.
You have to have your own personality.
Yeah. And that's why I'd be halfway through it. I'd be like, I can't do this because this is way too fake and I feel awkward. I'm out.
Yep.
Listen to some radio. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do that. So everyone who's reached out since I started this whole deal that has said you've enjoyed listening to these, I really appreciate it, because I just feel like, I don't know. I feel like, why would someone want to listen to me talk, I guess? So
yeah.
That being said, I'm not being too self-critical. I just never thought I'd be doing this. So I appreciate everyone who's reached out and said they've enjoyed any of this stuff. But so for episode 9, Corey's back with me, and it's going to be a little bit easier after the last 2 being alone, trying to keep it flowing. Yeah. It's going to be easier to just kind of like talk about what we're doing.
Of course.
Yeah. So that being said, if you don't know, Corey lives here in New Hampshire as well, lives about a little over an hour south of me, and is currently working with, I'd say, a mutual friend of ours that has a shop that basically works, like, I don't know, specializes in like air-cooled stuff. And so you have luckily still been working.
Yes, I have.
Yeah,
and like John is saying, it's basically just Justin, the owner, and I. So we're not seeing too many people. We're not really allowing customers to come in. Most of the projects we have are long-term. So the 2 of us go into the shop and we hammer, and that's keeping us busy, which I've talking to some friends that are stuck at home now. It's kind of brought a new light. Basically I've taken for granted that I can go to work every day.
Yeah, like a new reality to like what they're dealing with.
Yeah, so I'm now thankful that I get to go to work every day and put my head down and not be quite as bored as everyone else at home, you know what I mean?
And still be making money.
Exactly that too, yep.
Because I've talked about it a little bit on the last couple episodes, but I mean, all my work has come to a stop.
Right.
So it's really hit me right in the face, basically, because every spring I rely on the spring automotive events, the big car shows. I make a lot of merchandise and awards for all those shows. And when we came home from Chattanooga, Tennessee, when we came home from Chattanooga, I knew that we were in the middle of everything getting shut down. So there was uncertainty for sure. But basically, since we got home, all of that work has stopped because everything's been canceled.
Right.
And yeah, it's been a tough last month. I took the first couple weeks of basically no work to focus on some projects, some stuff that needed to get done, both in the night laser shop around here. I started writing a little bit more music, trying to spend more time doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But now, after paying the bills the first of this month of April, I'm now trying to dig my heels in a little bit more and like focus on generating income with the laser business in different arenas, I guess.
Right.
Different arenas than I'm normally making money, because normally it involves car shows and events, and those have all been canceled. So yeah, so like you said, it kind of gives you a perspective. I mean, I'm not locked down either. I'm not dying of boredom. There's plenty to do. There's plenty to do that doesn't cost me money too, because a lot of the projects I've put on hold. I haven't been buying a lot of parts for the Century that I need to finish, or stuff I want for the Century. Same with the dually. There's like, I still want to do a turbo upgrade and all that on the truck, and it runs and drives right now, and I'm not trying to haul that trailer cross country again at the moment. So there's no point in doing that right now. So I've put a lot of stuff on hold, but there's still a lot of stuff here keeping me busy. So, I mean, I was talking to somebody just the other day, and I can't remember who it was. It might have even been you. I know I was telling Mike about it too, but like I almost in a small way envy some of the people that may be financially stable, but also out of work. So they're not like kind of freaking out financially. I want to make sure I'm covering those bases, but I envy someone who isn't freaking out financially, but is out of work, but is also bored.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and they wake up in the morning and they're like, well, I'm just gonna make a cup of coffee and like watch movies for the day. And if it's a rainy day, that almost sounds like a dream.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to live that life because I'm not wired for that. And I know you're not either. Like,
no,
we got to be doing something. But I wish I had that mental capacity. I wish I could just like have that free, like the mind is empty, the mind is clear. Instead, it's like working overdrive right now because I'm like, oh, I got to generate business.
Right.
So yeah, so basically you're in a lucky position where you can still go to work. You're not around a lot of people, and the clientele that Justin has is still wanting work done. Yeah.
We were talking about this earlier. People are still investing in cars and putting money into cars, even though, the economy is crashing pretty much. But
Yeah, and I fear we haven't even seen the worst of yeah,
no,
not even beginning. I don't even think we can speculate how bad it's going to be on the backside of this.
I know it.
Not that we're here to do that, but yeah, it's great that people are still spending money on cars and stuff. Because I mean, you and I have watched Bring a Trailer and a few other like private sales cars selling for like normal price. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. I think people are pulling their money out of stocks and the economy and just buying cars, buying tangible things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because even once this is over, even if the economy crashes, there'll still be people that are in good financial standing that are still going to be like feeding their hobbies, and cars are obviously a big hobby. So, I mean, we watched, it couldn't have been more than 2 weeks ago. We watched that Dodge Aries K-Wagon, one of my favorite cars, by the way.
Yes.
That was in Washington. It was a Canadian market. Well, it wasn't Washington. It was in Vancouver, Canada. But it was a Canadian market K-car wagon, cream puff, 18,000 original miles, blue on blue velour. Just beautiful car. I think I found it and sent it to you. I think someone actually sent it to me someone might have actually sent that to me on Instagram and said, hey, this is right up your alley.
Yeah.
And they weren't wrong. So I watched that auction. It was like, 6 days, no reserve. 3 days in, it stalled at $2,000 and it stayed there for a couple more days. And I figured, well, man, someone's getting a deal. I almost, man, if work hadn't slowed down for me, I would have bid on that thing. But yeah, last day, within the last few hours, it ended up selling for like $6,800 or something crazy. So, I mean, $6,800 to somebody for a K car. So, yeah, people are still spending money on cars because I'm one of the small groups, or I'm in that small group of people that will spend money on a K car.
Right.
Because I definitely want one of those things.
Well, obviously some people were, because it bid all the way up to $6,800.
2 people did.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah. Back and forth.
From 2000 on, I guarantee you it was like 2 or 3 people. It came down to 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't want to. We've obviously talked about, how bad my car ADD is. And I've talked to a lot of people about the Century recently, and, people are like, you better not sell that thing. And I'm like, that out of anything I own, if if worst case scenario came to, I had to liquidate something to stay afloat. I don't think it's going to get to that point, but if it ever came to that point, the Century is the one that goes. Like the 700, the Corvair, the cab over, all that stuff stays. But the Century is still a dream car of mine, and I'm not done. I haven't even been able to really enjoy that car yet.
Right.
So that being said, it feels good that people are still spending money on cars, and specifically a car like that, like a niche market car. So I feel good about, that equity, I guess.
Right.
Rather than that being, like you said, in stocks or something that's very volatile at the moment or plummeting hard or will soon.
Yep.
So yeah, so it's strange times. It's strange times, and everyone listening, I wish only the best for you guys that are either out of work, currently still working, but stressing nonetheless about this whole deal, because none of us can hang out. I mean, like Corey and I are obviously in the same space at the moment, but we're still, I don't know, we're like 4 feet apart right now.
Yeah.
We're technically within the 6 feet, but we're not exactly like, I don't want to say anything gross. We're not like spitting on each other or anything, at least inadvertently while we're speaking. But
yeah, and I think we both have limited outside contact.
Yeah, for sure.
As well.
We're
not to justify it, but
yeah, but we're only making the like grocery store runs, and New Hampshire isn't on lockdown, like shelter in place yet, at least as far as I know. So I've gone for some cruises in the Corvair and not stopped anywhere, but like just gone for a drive in the car to clear my head when we've had some nice weather the last couple weeks now. So we got snow yesterday though. We got like 2 or 3 inches on the ground up here, and I literally I told you earlier, I watched a state truck go by last night. I just so happened to be outside plowing the road with an open chute, just dumping salt, like open chute, not even a spreader, just dumping it right on the yellow line. So now, yet again, got to wait till we get another hard rain to wash the roads off before anything goes back out on the road again. That's the worst. This is the worst time of year in that light. I almost, like, when you're in the middle of January, yeah, you still have 2 months left of winter, 3 months sometimes, but you almost expect it. You're like, well, everything's put away. We're not driving anything yet. Right. This time of year, it's like 60 or 70 degrees and it's sunny and we've had rain, so the roads are clear. Let's go drive. And then the next you turn around, it's snowing and they're salting the roads again and it's 20 degrees. It's like, oh my goodness. Make up your mind. So the seasons in the Northeast play with our feelings. The coronavirus thing is keeping us inside and not hanging around our friends. And so we're kind of like in this weird game right now between the virus and Mother Nature.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of weird, but we're honestly sitting down with no agenda to this podcast, other than the fact that Corey came up to hang out for the day, and since he's up here, I decided we'd get episode 9 banged out instead of me sitting here. I've already missed a week. I already didn't record a podcast last week. I did, however, sit down today at noon. It's like 8:00 at night right now, but I sat down today at noon with the ILB Drivers Club boys from Ireland, some good friends of Corey and I's, specifically Adam and James from ILB. And they started a podcast shortly after I did. I think they've only done a couple episodes at the moment, but as a video production company, they are killing it in the video podcast game already, because they've got all the hardware. They've got all the gear. They built a really cool podcast studio in their already existing studio. And the video part of their podcast is amazing because they've got all the cameras, and they got all the best cameras too. So they've got a couple cameras that show all of them at the table, and they've got like a TV as a backdrop so they can post like photos or just have a steady background or something. And then they've got individual cameras on like close-up shots of them all. So when they edit, they can like edit to whoever's speaking and stuff. That's obviously what I would love to do, but at this time where we're at now, I'm already cringing with the amount of money I invested in all this stuff anyway, let alone like 2 more $1,200 cameras to just get like, to have 3 $1,200 cameras. Basically $1,400 cameras. So soon, who knows if this takes off, then, I'll end up having some more gear and be able to expand, build a better studio and better setup on the road. But yeah, so anyway, I sat down with them. We had talked about doing a podcast when they first started, but preferably in Ireland or them here. I'd like to have Adam or James, both of them individually, for 2 different podcasts at some point on this, to talk, about everything, about their personal projects and their hobbies and stuff outside of ILB. But I sat down with the two of them, and it was kind of cool because I hadn't used Zoom before. Everybody's using Zoom now, that
Right.
video conferencing platform. And we used Zoom. I filmed with the camera that you guys are seeing us on YouTube right now. So I video recorded it with my 4K camera, recorded audio with all my gear here with the SM7B microphones and all that. But we used my MacBook and Zoom to see each other and communicate through there. So I basically had their audio out of the computer in my mix in my headphones, as well as my audio I'm recording, and could see them and had the camera rolling for all the high definition content. So it's kind of a cool, switched it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Had to get creative with the gear setup to record so they can ultimately have my footage and audio to edit the whole video. And they're going to use clips from the Zoom because they screen recorded the whole Zoom thing too. So I'm really eager to see how that came out. But that was fun. We did like just over 2 hours. We did like 2 hours and 15 minutes or something. And it was so easy. Like I'm glad that they've gotten into the podcast game a little bit because they're both really articulate and like easy to like talk to and easy to like keep subject matter flowing. So it was really cool to just sit. We basically just hung out. It's like we did it just a Zoom. We just hung out on Zoom basically, but just recorded a podcast. And as I told you earlier, it's funny. We talked about a few different things where like Adam's like, I'm actually learning something. Cause I'd be like, we don't have to go too much into detail about that. And he goes, no, please do. I'm actually intrigued to like, we talked about the roof chop on the Corvair and the math involved and like how we did it and how my dad and I, like how we laid everything out and how we thought we were going to do it and how things changed and how, once we got into it, how things changed and how we kind of overcame some of those obstacles. And yeah, it was pretty funny because Adam was like, no, this is actually super. I didn't know any of this. I just knew you guys like lowered the roof. And we talked about how we went and pulled another roof off another Corvair in a junkyard. And we talked about the symmetry of like how everything works if you're keeping your pillar angles. And so it was cool. I hadn't talked about that kind of stuff in a long time. So it was cool to kind of revisit it. And
yeah, that's cool.
So I'm excited to see how that comes out. So this is actually my second podcast of the day. So you showed up literally just as we were finishing recording the first one and didn't get into the shop to work on the Century, but that is currently in my dad's shop at the moment now too. And I'm in the process of changing some of the air suspension around on that. And yeah, so I think this weekend that's on the list. Oh, man, I don't know what else there is for news as far as, you've been working.
Yeah.
I've been working where I can. I've got a few jobs that have trickled in, and boy, oh boy, at this time in life, I am so grateful for any work that's come in. And I didn't take any work for granted before. Starting a business out of nothing and trying to get a name out and generate business or jobs in general, for just the last 5 years, to be able to do that and stay afloat is a blessing. But now with like all the amount of work that has stopped, anyone that comes to me for work is like, it's a blessing for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Because
you realize like how tight things can get when everything stops, all the events and work and all that sort of stuff. So, any other news? We had a bunch of questions come in on Instagram, so we'll cover some of those too. There was some for both of us, which is cool. Mm-hmm. I've been working on the Rising Sea stuff. Actually, I know if you guys follow me on Instagram, I've been posting a lot about that. With work being slow, I've tried to sit in here in my studio and write more, record more. I'm trying to look at this quarantine time as if I've been laid off from my job, but not neglect generating business too.
Right, of course.
So I've tried to take a lot of time at night to sit in here and get into that headspace of writing, because I'd like to come out of this whole quarantine thing with, even if it's like a 3 or 4 song EP, like just an acoustic Rising Sea EP that I can put out on Spotify and iTunes and be like, I accomplished something that I haven't accomplished in 10 years. Like I came out of this, like, there wasn't a lot of work. I didn't save up a lot of money through this whole deal, but I was able to like get some music finished and put out.
Right.
I'm my own worst critic, man. I made a joke on an Instagram story just the other day where I was like, I recorded some stuff that I had recorded musically and like kind of jokingly posted that I'm constantly like binning all the stuff that I'm writing. But yeah, I'm hoping some Rising Sea stuff can come out of it. I've talked to Dustin Williams from Okie Doke, who actually I'm wearing one of his Okie Doke shirts right now, about helping me design like a Rising Sea logo.
That's right.
That way, if anything goes up for material on iTunes and Spotify, can I have like an actual logo to go with it? So I'm excited about that. I wish it didn't come with the amount of like day-to-day stresses with what's going on right now.
Right.
It'd be nice to have like a clear mind to be able to write and stuff. So yeah, I mean, as far as news and info, that's kind of where we're at. I mean, have you done much of anything on your 190 recently?
I haven't touched the 190 since episode 3.
That's right.
I've just been grinding at work, and we went to Tennessee. And as soon as we got back from Tennessee, all this was kind of where it's currently at.
Yeah.
And I was just focusing on still being able to go to work.
Yeah. What was the last were you doing brakes on that thing?
Yeah, I did brakes all around. I did a new radiator because the old one had kind of corroded and just needed to be replaced. And just doing, like maintenance work on it. I still have the Commonwealth control arm kit to go in. I still got to get management and find some wheels, but Yep, I have a couple ideas for wheels. So
I think one of the questions that came in too were asking what you were thinking for wheels. So we'll cover that too.
Yeah.
Have you detailed that car yet at all? So
No, not really.
Yeah, well,
no,
from the photos,
I gave it one wash after I trailered it home. It got pretty dirty on the ride home. Yeah, that's it. It's pretty clean. I pulled off a couple of the big side molding pieces, and I'm gonna paint a couple of those just so they look better, and
like the door cladding.
Yeah.
It looks, just from the photos, I haven't seen it in person, but just from the photos you sent me, it looks like it could be in great shape.
Yeah,
like paint wise.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. I was actually kind of surprised. Like I had said on the other podcast, I bought that car to put the engine in the white 190, and it turned out being clean. So
that's great.
Yeah,
and already had Euro headlights in it.
Yeah.
And you sold the white one to Misha?
I did. Yep.
Yep.
And hopefully I don't know if he like had was keeping this under wraps, but he talked about putting a 1UZ V8 in a 190. So I am hoping
that happens. That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever seen a 1UZ 190.
I definitely have not.
I have not, in person at least. I've seen other Toyota motors. I've seen 1 and 2J swapped.
Yeah, there's a couple 2Js. Yeah,
and plenty of LS swapped ones.
Yeah,
I like when I had my 5-speed 190. My plan was to do an Evo 2 conversion on it until I realized the amount of like differences that the 2.3/8 valve and the 2.3/16 valve, like the interior and the bumpers and all that, were different. But my plan was, funding being an option, or throwing a ton of money at it being an option. I always wanted to do an OEM V8, like do like a Mercedes V8,
right?
That way the whole car. I mean, obviously the DTM Evos didn't have a V8 in them, but after watching a lot of the Judd V8 190 hill climb stuff, I was like, I gotta put a V8 in one of these things. But it almost, I don't want to say be too easy. I don't want to put an LS in a Mercedes.
Right.
I like a Mercedes. Mercedes is probably my favorite automotive brand. Like from their inception all the way through. I just love Mercedes. I think that's like my favorite automotive brand. And yeah, if I was gonna like put a V8 in a 190 or any other sort of Mercedes, I feel like I'd have to pay up and just do all Mercedes everything.
Right. And these days an LS swap in anything is cheating.
Yeah. Although it does sound amazing and goes amazing.
Yeah. And they are cheap. I will give them that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely cheap. I don't fault anyone for putting LS stuff in cars. I know when you were at Ace, you guys kind of picked on it, but you guys were working on like other really cool stuff too, though. So
yeah,
seeing like an LS
swap.
it's
not that we were taking anything away from an LS. It's just that out of all the engines you could pick, the LS is just like the cookie cutter, easiest, will bolt into anything type engine. So
yeah, I hear that.
Yeah. And it only has one cam, so you can't really do much with one cam.
But even just displacement in a tiny little car.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's something to be said for like some small car, like a Miata or something really small starting up, and it's got a V8 in it. It's like, oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a sleeper and you never saw that coming.
Yeah. Or that red Mark 1 with the LS in it.
With the RSs?
Yeah.
Yeah, with like it's like a full custom chassis with a
it was
like
at SEMA like a couple of years ago. I think he built it himself.
Him and his dad.
Yeah.
So I saw that car at the Syracuse Nationals.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. Mike saw it too, but yeah, we just walked up onto it. It was just parked at some vendor, and yeah, that thing's definitely crazy.
Yeah, I think his Instagram's like Mark 1 Coupe or something.
Yeah, I don't know what his Instagram is. Well, let's get into some of the Instagram Q&As. Let me see. Robert.
Of course, Robert.
I just opened them up. So all of you guys who are watching on YouTube, this has been like a last second recording of this podcast, so I don't have any of my notes written down in my notebook. Normally I've gone through these questions and I've kind of put them into like an order that makes sense with what we're talking about, so we don't end up backtracking. So if there was some automotive related questions, then there was some like BMX questions, or then some music questions. I usually put them all in order so I can talk about them all as categories and we're not bouncing around. So forgive me on some of these. I'm going to just kind of pick some of the best ones on the fly. I posted this story earlier today and a handful of questions did come in. TDs did ask some questions as usual. Dylan Keener from Florida. These questions can be for both of us. He said, first one is favorite quarantine snack. What have you been snacking on?
What have I been snacking on? I mean, in general, in quarantine, I've been living on frozen pizzas, as I'm sure everyone is.
So jealous. I mean, that's a snack.
Yeah, it's a snack. It's a meal. It's all of the above. I mean, Cheez-Its. Cheez-Its are my go-to.
Yeah, you are a Cheez-It guy, aren't you? What kind of Cheez-It? Just OG?
Just OG, family-size box of Cheez-Its down the hatch.
Not the big Cheez-Its either.
No.
Just the family-size box of the
just
small
the
Cheez-Its.
family-size box of the OG Cheez-It.
I have a box of Cheez-Its here at the house right now, believe it or not.
Excellent.
But they're not the OGs. They're the extra cheesy ones.
Okay. No, that's fine.
But they're just as... I say bad. They're not bad, but they're just as bad as the pepper jack ones where your fingers are just...
yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah, that's what... I didn't know the extra cheesy ones were going to be like that.
Yeah,
but I'm committed now.
Or the cheddar jack ones.
That's what I meant. Yeah, cheddar jack. Yeah, because those are amazing.
They are good.
Those are so good, but you have to... Even with these extra cheesy ones, if I'm going to take those out, I have to like set everything aside and be like, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to eat these Cheez-Its. Like nothing, like I'm not going to handle my phone. I'm not going to touch my laptop. I'm not going to handle anything else. I'm going to touch my remote once and I'm going to put something on and then I'm going to sit down and I'm going to eat these Cheez-Its.
Yep.
And then I'm going right to washing my hands.
Because it will be everywhere.
It does get everywhere. All around your mouth, all over your face and your hair somehow.
Especially with the mustache.
Yeah. See, I'm not living that life right now. But I've been thinking about growing everything out and then shaving everything except the mustache.
There you go.
And to any lady friends out there that are screaming right now, I'm sorry. It's just gonna... I don't mean screaming in a good way. Screaming because they hate the mustache.
Yeah.
I might just go for it again though. I've been sharing some throwback photos, as everyone is during this quarantine time. I've been sharing a lot of throwback photos to when I owned my 1960 Mercedes, when Dan Crosley shot it for Mercedes Magazine, and some of our trip across Europe to Worthesy.
Yep,
and I had a mustache throughout all those years. Like I had one while I owned my Fintail for most of the time and for the Worthesy trip. And I've been sharing a lot of those photos. And it's so funny because even the direct messages I get from, not just girls, but like guys being like, dude, bring the mustache back. And I'm like, yeah, I do kind of miss it. But being 35 now, I like shave like 10 years off my life when I shave. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to kind of ride that wave for a little bit.
Yeah, I've been thinking about going completely shaved.
Dude, we ought to just roll reverse. You like shave your mustache. I have seen you without a mustache, but it's so long ago that I don't remember.
Yeah.
And you shared a photo on your Instagram recently, like from like 11 years ago without a mustache. And I thought it was like a photo of your younger brother.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's not Corey. Oh, it is.
Yeah, nothing has changed about me except the mustache.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm thinking about it. We'll see. I need a haircut more than anything right now, as does everyone. I know you got fed up and just buzzed your own hair.
Yeah, I cut my own hair. I apologize ahead of time to my barber.
Hey,
it's
they
bad.
can't. No, they can't. They can't.
They share the memes about it.
Yeah.
That say, don't cut your own hair. And I did.
But they can't this is going on too long. Like
I know.
I was well overdue for a haircut before we left for Chattanooga. And if I'd known then what I know now, because we were going to get haircuts in Chattanooga. I remember asking Mason, like, hey, because we were going to go up to Nashville and see my buddy Johnny, who moved from here out to Nashville and works at a barbershop. And then we ultimately didn't make it up to Nashville for my birthday.
Yep.
Then the plan was to find a barber in Chattanooga. And then it was like, oh, it's not that really that important. We had other things to get done before the show and didn't get a haircut. And now it's been a month since we left for that. So I'm like 2 months in to a haircut and it's not good. It's not good. So I don't know what's going to happen in another month if I can't bribe one of my like barber friends to like come over here and quietly give me a haircut. I don't know. Yeah. So I don't know. I've been thinking about a mustache again. We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. I'm not sure. But I don't miss like not wanting to eat an ice cream cone.
Yeah.
Because when I had my mustache, it was like as long as yours. It was like it like covered my mouth, and I'm like, eating is like the worst thing ever right now. And unfortunately, it's necessary.
Yeah. The absolute worst for me, I've said it before to you, is when like you're eating like a sub or a sandwich and you go to take a bite and you pull in one of the mustache hairs and you bite down and it pulls it out.
Yep.
That's the worst. Your eyes start to water and you're like, no, I'm going to shave it off right now.
I'm happy that, I don't know if I should be happy, but I know exactly what you're talking about because that's happened. I've had a mustache long enough to where that's actually happened before. And yeah, it's not fun. It's not fun. But Dylan actually asked 2 questions, quarantine related on both of them. He actually said, what's the best part about being on quarantine? I mean, for me, when I'm home normally, and you've heard me say this time and time again, when I'm home normally, I'm like self-isolating and social distancing and all that anyway, because when I'm home, I mean, I live in a small town in New Hampshire. There's not a lot going on nightlife wise or social wise, and I don't have a lot of friends that live in my area like directly. Mm-hmm. So it's been, other than work being slow and thinking ahead a few months, trying not to freak out about like what's coming or what might be left in the next few months, it's been kind of life as usual. But if I were to speak on what's the best thing about quarantine, it's the idea that I might be able to get a Rising Sea album done.
Right. Yeah.
Even though I'm not as far in on a record as I'd like to be, but that's the best thing about quarantine, in my opinion. And I'm hoping that I can follow through and actually get something done.
Yeah, I think you will.
We'll see.
Even if you're working on it already.
Yeah, even if it's just one. Yeah, I've showed you some of the stuff I've been working on.
Yeah.
Even if it's just that one song I've been working on, even if I get that one done as like a single and get it up on iTunes and Spotify, I'd be happy. I just got to stop being so critical and like binning everything. I'm like, no, I don't like it. I got to just finally get it done and do it. But what about you? What's your favorite?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I'm not really in a quarantine
environment
as much as you know a lot of my friends are. A lot of you guys listening are. Obviously, it's weird not going out and doing social things. You know, all of the springtime events are not happening, which is a super bummer.
We were talking about that earlier when we were just headed over to Mo's shop. I was telling you, I'm like, yeah, when I'm home, I'm not like out with big groups of people all the time anyway until I'm on the road. But boy, do I miss just like going out to get food.
Right.
I just miss like 4 of us, 5 of us or whatever, just going to get Mexican food or something. Like, yeah, I miss that. Even though that was only like a once a week, if not like once every other week thing, I'm ready. It's been nice enough here to where I've had the Corvair out. I've been cruising that thing around a bunch, and yeah, I'd love to go cruise that to like a parking lot with some friends and like get ice cream or get coffee, or I'm ready to it's weird because and I joke about it because, you know, we were both about a year apart to our like relationship, like disaster type.
Yes.
Well, not like, I shouldn't say disaster. Well,
no, it's a disaster.
Yeah, no, yours is. But but I've jokingly said that, you know, I'm finally back on my rails again because I was single for like 4 years when I started the business, and I focused. The last couple of relationships before that were kind of like a disaster. So I was like, no, I'm going to focus on my own life. I'm going to focus. And then I rolled the dice and came up snake eyes basically, and now I'm back. But the joke I was telling another friend the other day was like, on the back end of this, I'm gonna be ready to re-enter the dating world, because it's like I can't even see my friends.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go from like one opposite end of the spectrum to the other end, be like, I don't want anything to do with anybody, and then at the end of this is like, are you my wife?
Yeah.
will you marry me?
Yeah.
first
Oh,
person
man.
that shows me attention. It's like, please. I'm not there, and nor will I be at the other end of this, I'm sure. But it's funny to think that way.
It's fun to joke about. Yeah.
It's like, yeah. Oh, will you date me? Will you hold my hand? Can you hold my hand? Can we just walk somewhere and hold hands? That'll be great.
Yes.
And this doesn't have to develop into anything serious after that. Let's just go get coffee and hold hands and smile at each other. Take a couple selfies.
Yes.
That'd be my favorite thing about quarantine. Coming out of this,
There you go.
ready to re-enter the dating world.
Perfect.
Wrong.
I am not.
Yeah, me neither. I know, man. I know. The light is at the end of your tunnel, though.
Yes.
You're almost there.
Yes.
It's almost all over. And we don't need to go down that rabbit
Next.
hole. Yeah.
On the questions, not
Yeah.
the dating.
That's what I mean. Like, yeah, change
Next question.
change
yes.
the subject.
Yes.
Man, let me see. So Eddie_350 asked this same question on the ILB Drivers Club podcast. So I'm going to direct anyone that wants to listen to this in more detail. Go check out the ILB Drivers Club podcast with me as the guest. I think this episode that you're listening to now will be out before the ILB Drivers Club episode will be out. I think they're aiming for midweek next week at some point. It is currently April 10th, Friday. I think I'll have this live by Monday morning. So once they go live with that, go listen to that episode. That was a fun episode to do. But Eddie350 said, what was in the duffel bag in the ILB Drivers Club H2O video 2017? And so if you guys haven't seen that video yet, please go watch the ILB Drivers Club, the Strip 2, the second one, the Strip 2, 2017 from Ocean City, Maryland. The beginning, the intro to that movie, it's actually a movie. You know, it's an actual like themed movie.
It's very cinematic.
Without like script and dialogue and stuff. I had my right-hand drive BMW 7 Series down there that year, and my good friend Ben Walker from England had come over, and we filmed the intro to this movie is basically me at the Ocean City airport with the 7 Series waiting to pick Ben up, and it's very Reservoir Dogs-ish. Plain white tee, Ray-Bans, you know, hair slicked, waiting, my usual scenario.
Driving gloves.
Yeah, my usual scenario anyway. Driving gloves are always in the car anyway.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I live that life regardless. But, you know, Ben gets off the plane with a duffel bag, you know, when he had his beard and mustache and like his Ray-Bans on and I walk out, we meet, we put the duffel bag in the trunk and we cruise into downtown Ocean City. Long story short, a lot of really cool cinematic shots in between all that stuff. But it's all kind of like Pulp Fiction based around the suit, around the briefcase. Right. Nobody knows what's in the briefcase. So, yeah, he asked what was in the duffel bag, and we kind of expand on that a little bit as to what was actually in the duffel bag.
Not to bunny trail, but did you guys mention 2019 Strip?
Yes, we did.
Movie. Okay.
Yeah. And since he's not sure, with everything that's going on, they're not positive if they'll even be able to come out here for Ocean City this year.
Yeah.
Or if they've even decided whether or not they will. So we talked about how between now and the end of September, I'm assuming we'll be able to hang out in groups, hopefully.
Right.
So regardless of that, as long as that's okay, I will be in Ocean City with the Century.
Yes.
Last weekend of September. It's like the 26th. I've already covered these dates on one of my last podcasts. But we are planning to be in Ocean City the 23rd through the 28th. 23rd to the 28th. Yep. Yeah. Going to be there with the Century. So what they were saying was that since that's kind of up in the air, Adam is currently, as we speak, working on 2019 Ocean City, Maryland. And he's really excited about it. So I didn't ask too much more in depth or in detail about it, but they sound really excited about where it's at, how it's coming together.
Awesome.
And all that. So, yeah. Moving on with the questions. Let me see. Man, I'm sorry, guys. I didn't look at these to begin with, so I'm kind of bouncing around. Robert Ulferhauser, my buddy who owns Ludwick, which is a Porsche, like basically a Porsche like restoration and racing shop in Richmond, Virginia. The guy's a character, wealth of knowledge too. But he asks why. That's it, just why.
Yeah.
And knowing Robert, it's a perfect question. And my answer is I have no idea.
No.
I have no idea, Robert. I don't know. I don't know. Do you?
No, I have no idea.
Neither does he. We don't know why. For anything. Steph Lessard asks, do you guys plan to come back to Bureaucracy this year if it's not canceled? You know, I didn't have plans to. I brought the 7 Series up to Bureaucracy in 2018. Yeah, 2018 I drove it up there. It's like a 4.5-hour drive, which isn't too bad. And I enjoyed it. It was hot. It reminded me of Waterfest, basically. It's all pavement. There's no shade anywhere. It's in the middle of June. It's usually super hot. And the Montreal roads are just so bad. The roads are so bad up there. But it was a nice jaunt away from home. Like I said, it's not too far. So with all the international travel basically canceled this year, doesn't look like Worthersy's definitely not happening. It looks like I'm not going to be in England for Players Classic or Racism in Poland. Russia's not happening in July. Yeah, it's not looking good.
Such a bummer.
Yeah, so that being said, and it is a bummer because, you know, I know you were going to try to jump on as many of these trips as possible as well, but going into 2020, I was so ready to travel more than I had in the last few years. I was ready to save up and just, do grounded in Russia, do 2.5 to 3 weeks in Europe for Players Classic and Racism or Alt Race. Worthersy again, do a Governor's Club meet at Worthersy in Austria. You know, it would be nice to do the Revival at Goodwood.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
That was on my list. That's later in the year, so that may still happen. I don't know, for me anyways.
Yeah.
I think that's like
September.
Yeah, it is September.
Beginning of September.
So it depends on Ocean City and that, but
yeah. And yeah, it's just going into 2020 was just such an optimistic outlook. Not that it's just the travel stuff has been changed, you know, it's just a bummer in that sense of like all the big plans for seeing new countries and meeting new people and new opportunities have just been kind of like literally halted.
Yeah.
So that's been a major bummer. So yeah, depending on the US to Canada border and groups, because Bureaucracy is usually in the middle to the end of June. So as long as in the next few months everything's looking good, because the international travel isn't happening, because normally we'd be in Europe for the dates of Bureaucracy this year, I think. We might go. At least I might even entertain the idea of bringing the Century up. That'd be really fun.
yeah.
That's a show that car would kind of fit in with, because it's like an all-encompassing show.
Right.
There's cars of all brands there and whatnot. So we'll see. Possibly. Man, let me look here. Steve von Kretchenstein says, will the Century get Governor's Club fender flags for cruising the strip? Give proper dignitary vibes. Yeah, Steve. I haven't. The Century was possibly going to go to SEMA this year, and I hadn't publicly said that, and it was going to go with AccuAir. And if you guys haven't, I don't want to say haven't been living under a rock, but if you've opened up Instagram or Facebook in the last week, you know that AccuAir's recently pulled the plug. And to be honest, I'm not going to get into that. It's a major bummer, and we kind of touched on it a little bit in the ILB Drivers Club podcast, but I'll say the same thing here that I said there. I just hope Dustin and Reno and everyone involved in AccuAir all the best. I hope that everybody stays healthy. It's a super bummer what happened, and that's all I'll say basically.
Right.
But because the rest of it's speculation.
Right.
So I'm not going to get into it. But that being said, nothing was signed. Obviously, even SEMA's now up in the air with what's going on. But the plan was, and I talked to them at SEMA this past year, they were interested in having the Century at SEMA this year. And
Yes.
and it was a pretty realistic looking thing. It was one of the cars that they wanted to have there. And I felt incredibly grateful for that, because I'm not living under this dream of like trying to get a car to SEMA. It's not what if we lived anywhere near Vegas, it would be like, all right, let's work with a few companies and build a cool car and get it to SEMA. Even if it's like a wheel company where it's like, we'll build something cool. Like, I mean, the Corvair and the 700 from, my first year at SEMA was last year. And I saw a lot of cars that were like the 700 in Corvair, something that was like really unique, but like a preservation type build.
Right.
It doesn't have to be like perfect or concourse level. So either of those cars could sit at a booth and like kind of fit in at SEMA, but I'm not going to, from New Hampshire to Vegas, it's not going to happen. But it was cool that a car like the Century had enough kind of presence to, someone that would want it there. So that was huge though, because I don't look at any of my projects as like something that would ever go to SEMA or that should be at SEMA, really. So I was really looking forward to that. It was a lot of pressure, as you know. I'd kind of talked to you about it. There was a lot of pressure on my just on my behalf to like get that car to a SEMA quality, what I think is a SEMA quality. I mean, a lot of people would argue that half the stuff there isn't finished, which a lot of stuff isn't, but it's all nice stuff regardless. But so that's a bummer that's not happening. But it frees up finances, and it frees up a lot of time to focus on other projects too and whatnot. So
Right.
But to go along with Steve's question, I wasn't talking a lot about the things I wanted to do on the Century because I wanted to keep a lot of stuff under wraps to unveil it at SEMA.
Right.
And yes, I'm definitely doing front fender like procession flags, and going to, more than likely there'll be black or white procession flags with the TGC logo embroidered on them, like a real nice chrome flag stand with a nice embroidered cloth flag on it.
Yes.
And so that's definitely in the plan still. He said, P.S. would buy pendants or flags if available, especially with the vintage anchor logo. Yeah, I think
nice.
I think one flag, at least on the Century, I think on one flag on one side will have like the new monogram logo. You were wearing a sweatshirt.
Yeah.
Like the circular, what you guys see here at the beginning and end. Oh no, that's only on the YouTube episodes, not the podcast. Regardless, we've got this circular monogram logo that'll be on one, and then I'll probably do the vintage anchor crest on the other. And maybe they'll be available. It's hard to make something that is like universal fit
right
to different cars. So if anything, it might make the flags available, and then you can fasten them to your car however.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. I'll try to get a few different. Okay, so Truls Venman asked, what brand and size split wheel would look good on Corey's 190? There's a whole bunch.
Yeah.
That would look good.
A lot.
But what do you, without giving anything away that you definitely want to do, what are a few contender split wheels that you're thinking about?
Yeah, I don't know how much I want to keep under wraps just because I have an idea in my head, and I don't think a lot of people have done this. Not that that's my goal, is to like, do something that hasn't been done, but
that's always fun though.
Yeah, it is.
Or something you haven't seen before.
Exactly. And I haven't seen it. So yeah, I definitely have some things in mind. Possibly some BBS LMs, or I mean, like you're saying, there's so many wheels that look good on that car.
The 190 I sent you photos of just the other night, the BBS kitted 190.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, that one looked amazing.
Yeah, the zero lip speed lines.
They were speed lines, or they were a 5-spoke. I can't remember what wheel those were.
Like the Ferrari speed line, or
they're like the
it's pre-Autostrada Modenas.
But they looked like Modenas. They were smaller, but they were a zero lip setup. So the face kind of poked beyond the car, but the rest of the lip and tire were underneath the car. And like I said, man, when I had my 190, I envisioned that look on my car. I just never went through with it. I had more of like a deep lip setup on that car.
Yeah.
But man, it looks so good on a 190. But yeah, I'm excited. I really like 3-spoke wheels too.
Yeah.
Like the 3 spokes that Dean Flowers had on his 124 wagon.
Exactly.
The Brabus 3 spokes, those looked amazing.
Yeah.
He had those wheels on his W140 too for a while on the S-Class.
He did, yeah.
And an S-Class, a big W140 looks crazy on 3 spokes. It was almost like Valentino's W126 long door on 3 spokes.
Right.
Well, it definitely looks crazy.
Which I think he just sold, by the way. Yeah.
Well, he made a post that said sold. And Valentino is infamous for like making triggered posts.
Gotcha.
Or posts
I didn't realize that.
Trigger people. He more than likely did sell it, but I haven't texted him yet. That's who we stayed with when I went to Switzerland. We stayed with him in Milan.
Right.
I got
that's
a chance.
Right, yeah.
I know you and I saw that car in person at Wörthersee in Austria, but I got a chance to see it on the Futuras when he got the Futuras done.
Yes.
At his unit in Switzerland, and he lives in Milan's, which is right in the middle of the Alps. You look out he's got like these auto blinds in like his living room. When you open it up, all you see is like the Alps.
Man.
It's like,
yeah,
it's unbelievable.
It's crazy.
It's like, it's almost like these blinds open up and it's just a mural of the Alps on like a wall.
right. Like,
And
it's
then
not real.
Then you open the sliding door and you step outside and it's like, oh my goodness gracious. And there'd been like an apartment building built right in front of him, but you can almost like look over the roof, but it's like right there still. And it's like, and Valentino was like, that building was literally built last year.
Oh,
and I was
man.
like, oh man. And like, and that building now has the best view because it's like right in front of his building.
And I'm sure they pay for it. Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah. But yeah, that car looked amazing on the 3 spokes. It looked equally as good with the new front lip that he found for it. I don't know if it was BBS or not, but with the OZ Futuras.
Yeah.
It's really good. That's another wheel that'll look great on a 190s.
Oh,
Futura.
absolutely. Yeah. I've actually been toying with the idea of 1552 just came out with a wheel that looks like the factory wheels from the Lancia Delta.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I really like them.
Because what's his name? I can't remember his Instagram name. It's like Car Enthusiast or something weird. The guy in New York City with the white Lancia Delta has those wheels on it.
Yes.
The white
Yep.
that look like the Delta wheels.
Exactly.
And him and Magnus Walker just did like this video that 1552 promoted.
Yeah, Big Apple Outlaw.
Is that what it is?
That's what the movie's called.
I haven't watched it yet, but I just saw a teaser for it and I was like, those are those new 1552 wheels.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a beautiful looking wheel on a beautiful car.
Yeah.
For sure.
If you're into those cars, I'm not huge into like Magnus Walker and his whole thing, but yeah, definitely watch Big Apple Outlaw on YouTube. That car is like,
Yeah.
that's, as we've talked about this in different episodes, that's like top 2 cars for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I want one so bad.
That guy's got a pretty crazy collection too, because I'm pretty sure he has I'm going to get this wrong. A 034?
No.
03?
037.
7, that's right. and I now that I got it wrong, I can't say that it's one of my favorite Lancias, but it is.
Yes.
It's 037, that's right.
He has
He
has all of them.
For some, yeah, he does. I
He
keep thinking 034 Motorsport.
Oh yeah.
That's like I keep thinking
the
about
Audi. Yeah, the Audi guys.
Exactly. But yeah, 037, he's got one of those. I think he's got 2 Delta Evos.
Yep, he has an Evo 1 and an Evo 2.
Oh, and he's got what's the other car that looks like the Delta?
Yep.
What is that car? I don't remember.
Do you want me to tell you?
Yeah,
Oh.
I'm looking on Instagram.
The Lancia Delta S4.
The S4.
Yeah,
That's
the twin charged
yes.
rally Group B spec.
That's the one. That
and
car
he
looks
drives
insane.
it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He takes it to the grocery store.
He
and,
dailies the
like,
Delta.
Yeah.
Like the Delta's like his daily.
Yeah, he has this this hashtag where he uses all the time. I can't remember. It's
He's like a watch dealer.
It's like, yeah, he is.
Or a watch collector. I don't know what he does for
collector.
money.
I know.
But he's got like some high dollar watches.
Yeah.
Side note, and no one knows this about me, I am a watch nerd.
I am.
I
am too.
And I don't own a single watch. I mean, you've got one on.
Yeah,
but
I have a lot of watches, but not expensive ones.
But man. And I didn't like keep it under wraps or anything. It's just I've got nothing to show for this love or enthusiasm for like I'm a watch aficionado. I don't own a single watch, but like I dream of having the expendable money to have a case, like a shadow box or a watch case with like a World War II Daytona Rolex and like the aviation Rolexes and stuff, and I'm not well versed on it. So there's a lot.
Right.
I haven't immersed myself in it because I'm not like on the market of like trying to buy and sell them. But that is a community or a realm that I want to be immersed in the worst way.
Yeah, me too.
I love vintage watches so much. They
Yes.
fascinate me. The mechanics of them and the incredible detail that goes into its manufacturing and how they're made and detail and all that stuff. Like not like the crazy stuff that has all the wild moving stuff. I mean, all that's insane too. Like those $1 million watches that have all that crazy like moving parts and stuff. Just vintage watches. I just like a vintage looking Rolex or something is just so cool to me.
Yeah.
But
a lot of the ones that collector has, they're all like, a lot of them are like one off with like hand engraved back plates.
I've looked at some of those. Yeah,
man, they're crazy.
Definitely nuts. But yeah, I mean, so going back to the 190, yeah, there's a lot of different wheels that would look great on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I'd love to own another 190 at some point. But, and I've said this before publicly, and I've told you, I want to do a Vestatech kitted 190 so bad with the Vestatech wheels, the shower drain Vestatechs.
Yeah.
But I want to split them and either make like some sort of crazy like zero lip setup or like a deep lip setup.
Right.
Because the Vestatechs were all like 15x7 or something silly. So
yeah, pretty weak.
The Vestatech body kit on the 190. I've got a photo somewhere of an all white Vestatech 190 with the white Vestatech wheels on it, or they might have been silver, but it's like as 90s as it got.
Yeah.
And I want to do one so bad. I found it might have been the front splitter and side skirts, or it might have been the side skirts and the rear diffuser. I can't remember the rear skirt. But it was a 190 Vestatech like partial kit. It was like a 2/3 of a kit for like $200 or $300 on eBay, and it was like in Connecticut. And this was like 5 years ago.
I think I remember you mentioning that you almost bought it just to have it. Yeah,
just to have it, and I should have because the money was short, and I probably would own a 190 right now if I had. But yeah, I'll do another one at some point. I really want a 124 Estate as well. I've always wanted one of those.
Yep, definitely after working on Carly's down in Tennessee. That solidified it for sure.
Yeah, they're just and hers is a pre-facelift, and that's my favorite generation. Like Nick Pro, who some people remember his wagon, he had a facelift that was static on 16-inch RSs with like tight fitment, and he drove it all over the country.
Yeah,
they raised the motor, they raised the rear strut towers. It rode amazing on yellow speed coilovers, but it was on the deck. And that thing was just such a beautiful car, but it was a facelift. And I mean, and that's okay. But my favorite is definitely the pre-facelift for sure. It's a little bit squarer up front. It's got a more boxy nose to it. More questions. Well, we should cover this one real quickly. Mischief_Stein said, question for Corey, what's next for the wagon? The wagon's been sold.
Oh, bummer. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's added to the list of cars I never should have sold, but hey.
Moved you forward. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the wagon's gone. So what's next? We don't know. Currently for sale, I think.
Yeah, it's back up for sale. Long story.
Long story, go get ripped off. Whoops. Let me see. E_Lewis.S asked, if you could update or change one thing on the Corvair, what would it be? That's a good question.
Yeah. Put those wire wheels back on it.
Yeah. So if you guys follow me on Instagram or friends with me on Facebook, when we were in Chattanooga, Mason, who puts Riverside on, has some 100-spoke. Yeah, he'd ordered the 75s, but the 100s showed up.
Yeah.
He had some 100-spoke. I can't remember who made them. They're basically Dayton's.
True wire?
Yeah. They were a 100-spoke wire wheel, and he had like the low pro white wall tires on them. Typical lowrider look with the true knockoff center caps and adapters and all that. And the adapter had numerous bolt pattern PCD options, and one of them was the 5-on-120, 5 and 4 3/4 bolt pattern for the Corvair. So while we were hanging out in the shop, they were for his 123 Mercedes, and that car wasn't making it to the show. So he's like, he hadn't seen those wheels on any car before. So we test fit them on the Corvair, and they were like a perfect fit. And we aired it out and took some photos. And Mason, this was before Riverside got canceled, and Mason was like, you have to go to the show with these wheels on the car. And excuse me, as well as, I mean, I like the look, but they don't fit on the Corvair the way I like them to. But yeah, everybody was giving me a hard time. I posted some photos on the internet. The photos on Facebook went viral.
Yeah.
Hundreds of shares. And I mean, not as viral as some things go, but I don't ever post stuff for the sake of people, like, I don't know, for the sake of it getting shared around on Facebook. So I was just surprised that it took off as big as it did.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wouldn't be wire wheels. But wheels on that car have been on the list. I'm thinking about doing a few different things on that car. A few things that I've kind of written off that I'm not going to do right now. but I always wanted to run 14s. I'm running 16s right now. The Kraegers that I ran originally were 15s. I'm running 16-inch Epsilons, 16 by 9.5 all around. But what I wanted to do for a little bit was go down to 14s and do like a Japanese Shakotan style Corvair, and because I really like that style on American cars, because that's one of my favorite automotive genres is like the Japanese Shakotan cars. I love it so much. The 14 by like 11 with like a tall sidewall stretch, narrow tread, tall sidewall. I love everything about the Shakotan through and through, like Bippu, Shakotan, the VIP movement, all that sort of stuff. So I thought about doing like 14-inch SSRs, or like long champs or something like that on the Corvair and going down to 14s. I think it would still look really good, but I love the fact that even on the 16s, I can skate that car like tucking wheel and I can still drive it. Whereas if I had it on 14s, it would have like wheel gap even to drive it at a low height.
Yeah.
So I like the car. I come from like the static, days, I guess. So I like the car looking as good rolling as it does aired out, if it can. So I'm on 16s now. I know for sure I can lay the car out on 17s without doing major tub cutting or whatever up on the inner fender wells. Mm-hmm. But I can't do 18s. I tried test fitting my AC Schnitzers, and 18s just look too big on that car. So what I'm thinking now, and it's not giving too much away because it may not happen for quite a while, the 5-spoke Epsilons that are on my Corvair now also came in 17s.
Yes.
You know this because I've actually talked to you about this.
Yeah.
I passed about 3 or 4 years ago, I had a friend from Rhode Island that had two 17-inch Epsilons, the 5-spokes like mine, and was offering them to me. And at the time, I didn't have any money to spend on like just a pair of wheels. And I hadn't thought about what I want to do now on the Corvair, so I passed on them. And it bums me out because the 17s are like significantly more rare than the 16s.
Yes.
And even the 16 5-spoke Epsilons are pretty rare. But now I'm thinking I want to do a staggered diameter setup on that car. I want to keep 16s up front and run a pair of 17s in the rear, but the same wheels.
Right.
And the faces were larger on the 17-inch. So they actually look larger. It's not like they just have a step lip or anything like that. So I'm envisioning a staggered setup, like 16 by 9.5 and 17 by 9.5 in the rear.
Yes.
And I think that would be a pretty cool look on that car. Or 17s front and rear. If I could find a full kit of 17s, I think that would look pretty cool too, because it would tuck just as much in the front.
Right. Yep. You can still skate it.
No, I won't give that one away. I'm not going to give that one away. There's something else I'm going to do on the Corvair that's been on the list for the last 3 years, but I've been too nervous to actually pull the trigger and do it. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it this summer. You know what I'm talking about, probably. Yeah, I'm doing it. It's going to be a Shakotan car when it's done. It is. Because I don't want to dive too deep down the Japanese like Shakotan. Now, we're not talking Bosozoku here. We're not talking like 10-foot blast pipes and like, I mean,
overdone stuff.
I enjoy what that is for what it is. It's a Japanese rebellion movement, like the guys on the bikes in the 70s and 80s that used to do that to their motorcycles. It was like a rebellion. It was like a rebellious, non-violent movement. They were showing about how they didn't fit to into the norm or into the box by the loud modifications they made to their cars.
Right.
I respect that. I love that there's that movement. I'm not going to build a Boso car because that's just like a 20-foot long lip that sticks way out. Like it's cool, but it's
they're
not for me.
entertaining to see for sure. But yeah.
And they can actually like sing jingle bells through the exhaust and the way they shift and let the clutch out and rev, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
But I like the Shakotan styled cars more because they're very clean.
Right.
They're very
Simple.
smooth and they flow. Everything's like super tight and clean. And but the Shakotan stuff I want to do to the Corvair is going to turn that car like into a Shakotan car.
Right.
But I've been too nervous to do it because I go to a lot of cruise nights in my area, like hot rod cruise nights and stuff. And that car is showing up looking like a Shakotan car. No one's going to understand. But yeah, I got a few things on the list to turn that car into like a Shakotan car. And my first podcast I did with Josh Garcia at Revival, we actually talk about that a little bit, but it was before I bought the Century. And I think we actually were talking about how I'd been thinking about turning the Corvair into like a Shakotan style build, but if I didn't actually find a Century.
Right. I think
now I've got a Century.
I think that's true.
And I'm still looking at doing a Shakotan inspired modification list to the Corvair, which I think would be kind of cool.
It was bound to happen either way.
I know. Yeah. But it's going to be subtle. So it's going to be subtle. There's a few obvious Japanese things I'm going to do in that car, and I'm excited nonetheless.
Yeah.
But to keep... so speaking of the Century, I'm going to butcher your Instagram name here. Rune Tang Clan. ROONETANGCLAN. Rune Tang Clan. Said, I'm dying to know if you figured out the middle door situation on the Century.
Oh,
hey,
yeah.
Listen, guys, I can't believe the amount of you guys that have like followed through and remembered that all I posted was an Instagram story about it.
Right.
That's it. And a lot of you guys have remembered that and actually been intrigued enough to like DM me on Instagram and stuff and ask me about this. And I appreciate that because I actually didn't, since that night, I haven't revisited that, but there's an update. I don't even know if I told you about this yet or not, but somebody tagged me in a series of photos on Instagram of some guy from Japan that has a few Centuries, and one of them is a VG45 long wheelbase like mine.
Yeah.
And that middle door is open.
Really?
Yes, it's open. Now, the description of these photos is all in Japanese, and when you translate it, it doesn't make much sense.
Yeah.
But it essentially basically says, like, these doors open or something.
Wow.
But it's a photo with all 6 doors open. Plot twist, the opera window opens with it.
Oh man.
Which is valuable information for me because I remember just in my head looking at it being like, that door, just by the look of everything, that door definitely opens separate from the window. Like I thought the window was static on the car. So the front mount to this door are hinges. And that's why I thought this thing must open. By the look, it doesn't connect at the bottom. All evidence points to that it's a door. Just the way it's open at the bottom of the rocker, it's not attached to the body.
Right.
Like a B-pillar is. You know, like a B-pillar that goes all the way down between your front and rear door is attached. It's a unibody car.
Right.
This is not. This is open. You know, there's a sill down there. And up top at the base of the windows, it looks like an opening piece. But what I also thought is, since I couldn't figure out how to open it, and I looked everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I even looked up underneath the dash for some sort of vacuum or electronic servo, like pop or something for it. I looked everywhere. And I dove down into the bowels of the internet. I even had a few people on Instagram, like start a chat with me about, like, they were searching the internet too. They're like, I'm looking, like, what should I search? And they were sending me links to different pages where they thought they found some information, but it wasn't.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
It's funny. It's like a bunch of people kind of took the torch and like ran with it. But I've seen photos of that door with the opera window open. So I knew it, because what I started to think was that maybe that the front mount of that center section were just the hinges for the rear door on the short wheelbase car. Because the short wheelbase car is the same exact car, but just shorter. Like my car is literally just the longer B-pillar, a longer rear door, and a longer roof. And that it's the same car other than that. Front doors are the same. Basically, windshield forward is the same, and from the rear window back is the same.
Yep.
So I thought, well, maybe for the sake of not making or not like sacrificing old parts, they used like the short wheelbase rear door hinges as like just the mount for this new center section that they essentially bolted onto the car. But seeing photos of them open, I know they open. So the next time I'm in that car, which is actually going to be here in the next, over this weekend, I'm going to give it another look over and figure out how that thing opens. Because it will be easier to run wiring through the middle of that car with that piece open.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like a 20-inch section or something like that. He says, I'm dying to know if you figured it out. I haven't figured it out yet, but I've seen photos of it open, so I know it opens. So I'm going to give it another door. Yeah, I'm going to search harder for and I'll show you guys. I'll post like how I figured out how to open it, because it's not right in front of you. I've looked up top, down low, in between. There's some sort of hidden latch or release somewhere.
Huh.
It's very cool. And it's very cool that a lot of other people have like stayed intrigued about that.
Still interested. That's cool.
Pretty cool. Let me see. What else? We got a few other questions. We're only an hour in. We're really not as... I figured we were way deep into this. A couple more automotive ones. It says, let me see. Where was I? This is what happens when I don't write it down. I start bouncing around trying to make sure everything kind of flows.
Yeah. No worries.
Here we go. Luke Duville asks, how do you decide whether to go static or bagged on a build?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah.
So, I don't really know. So when my dad and I pulled the BMW 700 out of the woods, I basically knew I wanted to bag that car. Now, here's my, what should I call this? My normal outlook on cars for suspension, static versus air. And one would argue that air is better than static simply because of its versatility, and you can get it onto a trailer easier and you can get in and out of driveways easier. And that's obvious. But I don't have a stance one way or the other what's better, because like he asked, some cars call for one thing, some cars call for another.
Yeah.
Now it's cool to switch it up and do the opposite of that on a car that may call for something else. And now you're kind of thinking outside the box.
Right.
When people first started bagging Mark IIs, I thought it was really cool because I'm like, oh, that's a car I would never bag.
Right.
Like a Mark II Jetta, or especially a Mark II Golf, especially a GTI, that's a coilover car. You slam that thing on the ground and make it handle like it's on rails, and you go carve some mountain or some roads to the woods, in my opinion. So when I look at a car, usually the basic outline is a small, sporty looking car, naturally, I see as normally being a static car, like more of like a road car, like a race car type outlook, and get involved in like the spring rates and your rebound rates and just kind of get the car handling well.
Right.
But in that same breath, that big long wheelbase, like flagship cars were the ones that usually belong on air, because they're just like this big, slow, long car, and you park it and think air's out, and then you get out of the thing.
Right. The presence of it.
Yeah. It's kind of got that MO to it, I guess. So to add to that, and I talked about this around you too, when I had my BMW 7 Series, which I bagged, and I did quite a bit of fabrication of that car to get it so it laid flat out. Rear diff touched the ground and the front engine cradle touched the ground. And I thought for a long time that if I'd kept that car as long as I really wanted to, that I was going to take it through a few different stages.
Yep.
In the next stage, I was really, really interested in building a coilover setup for that car, because you were with me. You actually found it.
Yeah.
We found the Racing Dynamics kit for that car,
right,
which I still have in my shed. And if you guys are listening to this, it's for sale. I don't want to say I've been too lazy, but I haven't taken the time to pull everything out of my shed and list it again. But the front splitter, a Euro front bumper, the side skirts are gone with the car, unfortunately, but the rear spoiler too. I've got an original 1980s Euro Racing Dynamics kit with a Euro front bumper that is for sale, because I need to clean that shed out. But aside from that, when I had the full kit with the side skirts and that car, my thought process was, since my 7 Series was a manual gearbox, was to do a second rendition of that car, put the Racing Dynamics kit on it, find the 18-inch Racing Dynamics split wheels,
yes,
build a set of coilovers for it, pipe the motor up, preferably drop the money on an M88 IT bead motor.
Yep.
Just like the South African 745. Let's talk about that, guys. I'm going to bunny trail real quick because I'm a complete nerd about this. The E23 BMW 7 Series was offered in a turbo model called a 745. Now, the 735 was a 3.5 liter straight six. The 733 was a 3.3 liter, and so on and so on. So some would argue that the 745 turbo, I should cover that part first. They offered a 745i, which was a turboed version with the M30 in it. And some would argue that the 745 stood for a 4.5 liter straight six. Well, that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
So it was still a 3.5 liter. It just had a turbo on it. Now, only mainland Europe and the US market got the 745 turbo. Maybe some other left-hand drive countries may have received a few. I might be wrong there. But all I know is mainland Europe and North America are the only two places that got the turboed 745. Because the turbo setup with the exhaust manifold and all that wouldn't fit on the right-hand side, where it obviously normally mounts, with a right-hand drive car with a steering column, brake booster, brake assembly,
right,
all
exactly.
that stuff. And since mine was right-hand drive, I know exactly why that wouldn't work.
Yep.
Because looking in that engine bay, intake, exhaust manifold, all that's all on the same side already. And steering column, brake assembly, ABS module, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like there's no way.
And the one in the junkyard with the parts on it was a turbo model.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
745.
So the white car that Corey found that I essentially robbed the Racing Dynamics kit off of, and all the Euro bits and trim and grill and all that stuff, was a shark nose pre-facelift Mark 1 E23 like mine was. So it didn't have the full plastic front end. It had the actual shark nose pre-facelift E23 front end to it. And that was a German market car because the instrument cluster, the center console, everything was in German.
Yep.
It was a German market 745 turbo car. Unfortunately, it was an automatic, but
Right.
it was a turbo car and didn't run clearly. But so those two markets got the 745, which is a turbo car. None of the right-hand drive markets got the 745 because they couldn't put a turbo on it.
It just wouldn't fit.
That's right. So there was no point in doing that. So South Africa, which is right-hand drive and had a strong BMW market, strong for what they were down there, decided to contact BMW and say, we want to do a 745. We want to do a right-hand drive 745 to sell down here, because the 745s were selling great because it was a big body car with a turbo on it.
Yep.
So what they essentially did through BMW, I hope I'm right on this. Like, it's been a long time since I've told this story or since I've done all this reading. 209. I'm pretty sure that's it. It's not 309. 209 745 right-hand drive 7 Series E23s were built for the South African market. And instead of having the 3.5 turbo motor in it, which it couldn't fit, they put the M88-1, I think. There was an M88 1, 2, and 3. And one was like the Group 5 motor, and then, the detuned for the M6 E24 and the E28 M5.
Yep.
But they put that motor, they put an IT-bead M88 race motor in 209 BMW 7 Series and sold them in South Africa. 209, and apparently one of them stayed in Germany or went to Germany. So 208 stayed in South Africa. And to me, that was the coolest thing in the world because, 2 or 3 years ago, I got a chance to drive an M1, which has, that's an M88 powered car. And that sold me. I was like, if I keep this E23 long enough, I will build a tribute South African 745 car. Because it's right-hand drive, it's manual. I've already got the BBS body kit, so it makes it look a little bit more sporty. My plan was just to take the air out, build a coilover setup for the car, and find, and unfortunately at that time, all the M stuff was going crazy, so the M88 motors were going nuts. But to find an M88, swap that in, and build an actual tribute, one of the 209, basically make number 210 or whatever. South African 745 M88 powered. So as I'm saying this, like, all I want to do is go find an E23 and do that. But to me, that was the coolest thing. Like that. So essentially, the South African 745s were dubbed the first and only unofficial M7 because it was M powered for the day. Because an E23 was when the E24 and E28s had the M88s in them.
Yep.
They were M powered, but weren't offered as an M car. So in my opinion, that was the coolest thing in the world. And nowadays with the new BMWs, you can obviously buy an M packaged 7 Series.
Yes.
But up through the 90s, there was never an M7. So
right.
In my opinion, that was kind of cool. So I know I bunny trailed there, but I really enjoy, because I dove deep. I found
cool.
So many articles. I found myself on the unofficial or maybe official BMW M registry website and found an article about the unofficial M7, and it talked about the South African cars and how they had M88s in them, and
that's cool.
So that's pretty cool. Yeah, I'd love to do that someday. It'd be good now that I've sold the E23. But yeah, so to go back to Luke's question, when I first got the 700 pulled out of the woods, I knew I wanted to bag it because I knew I wanted to put it over a beetle pan, and I was honestly, I don't want to say 50-50. I might have been 60-40 on this, where, as most of us do in the automotive community, we all have some of those friends that have an old bug that's static on the floor. And first person that comes to mind is my good friend Jake Hilling from England. Him and his dad have a company called HR Auto Works, and they basically just build old air-cooled rigs out of his dad's little shed. And they're amazing rigs. He's got an old split window Beetle. He's got a Zwitter. He's got excuse me, he's got an oval window at the moment.
Yep.
They imported a Brasilia from South America back a few years ago, and they bagged that.
That's right.
But he's got a split window bug. And you and I were having this conversation earlier. I've never been a bug guy as far as owning them. I love looking at a slammed Beetle. I love it. But more so recently, and again, I'm always behind the times with what they're doing financially. I want to, man, I've never been interested in owning a bug. But now that I've got the 700 done and I get to see that little thing around, I want a split window bug so bad.
Yeah.
Or an oval. But that's it. No other Beetle will quench that thirst. Like no other Beetle will do. Like I don't want a Beetle bad enough to where I'd justify like even a late 50s Beetle. It has to be an oval or a splitty. But a lot of these guys that have them static, like Jake's split window is static, and that thing is on the running boards, and it looks so good. And he drives it to Belgium for these like Beetle shows and stuff. Man, like getting on the Eurotunnel train, like static, like can barely get up the ramp, and that like, probably has to have them like keep him down below because he probably can't even crest for the upper deck on the train.
That's right, yeah.
But so when I pulled that 700 out of the woods, I thought like a part of me was like, maybe I'll do it static. I'll put it over a built pan that touches the ground almost, and just drive this thing on the floor all the time. And I kind of wish I did in a way. But when that body lays on the ground, it's just not drivable.
Right. And I feel like with that body, you're not going to want to ruin that body. Your rockers touch the ground. Well, I mean, you made the rockers.
We made the rockers.
But still.
We can always make new ones. Yeah, because that's what I was going to say. You're right. You're correct.
Yeah.
There's like BMW 700 parts are non-existent.
Yeah, basically the front of the car touches the ground.
And luckily, if you've seen photos of it, it's all like rotted away anyway. And we had the rockers were so rotted. There was just like a 3-inch wide section that we cut out that went down to the pinch weld that we used as our form to make full rockers.
Right.
Like there was only like this 2 or 3 inch wide little section that we were able to get like an estimated like bend and curvature to. And
right. An idea of a rocker.
So basically everything that would touch the ground, we had to make anyway. So.
Yeah.
But that being said, it lays rocker from the front to back, and so it would just always, it would just always touch the ground, and you just wouldn't be able to get it on a trailer. And I love taking that thing other places, and I don't want to drive it from here to Ocean City, so it'd be miserable to get into or onto a trailer and all that. So I love the fact that for photos that can sit flat on the ground, but I can also drive it super low. That was a car that I had a toss up though. I wasn't sure if I wanted to bag it or keep it static. So some cars I know for sure. The last car I actually like had as a project that I built suspension for that wasn't off the shelf that I did static was that Derby. That Polo right. Derby that I had. So we've talked about it on the podcast before, but I had a right-hand drive Mark 1.5 facelift Polo Derby from England, and that doesn't have any real off the shelf. There's some companies making coilovers and bag kits for those cars now, but I basically just custom built my own coilover set, which being in America, unfortunately meant I had to make axles too. I had to keep the Polo inner CV shaft, boot and flange, and I had to go to Mark 1, like the 1.5 or larger outer CV shafts. So we cut the axles, we pinned and doweled them, we balanced them, welded them up, and that was an awesome project. My friend Nick Acton up the street, who's got a machine shop, helped me do the machining operations to turn the axles down into a pin, and then to drill the other end, and we were able to dowel them, and that was a lot of fun.
Right.
But I knew at the get-go that I wanted that car to be static.
Right. Yeah.
Just because it seemed like it called for it. Just like the Century, you couldn't drive that car anywhere if it's static. It's just too long.
Right.
You wouldn't be able to get in and out of anything. But
yeah, and like I was going to say, to answer the question, is each car, like up front, you have an idea of what it needs to be almost.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
like your 190, same with my 190. Like I bagged my 190 in the end of 2012 going into 2013, so it was like 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And nobody offered a kit. I hadn't even seen any bag 190s. Not that it was the first one by any means, but I hadn't personally seen one, which is why I figured I'd get a lot of flack from like 190 guys, because a lot of the 190 guys were like tracking their cars and running yellow speed racing coilovers or building coilovers. And so I didn't think that car called for air, but I hadn't seen one on air yet.
Right.
So I was like, well, I'll just do it.
Right.
I'm going to daily it, so coils would be the proper option since it'd be less maintenance and less fail points. But I bagged it anyway, and it was a fun challenge because it was all, you know, we had to custom build everything, which wasn't too much stuff. But that was fun, and the car ultimately sat just the way I wanted it to. I tucked the rear wheels for a little bit, and then I went to like a fender lip fitment, and it was a fun project. But like your car, you're planning on bagging it, but that car, you could pull off just a good look static.
Right.
You could do something real crazy.
To be honest, I plan to bag this car, and then in the future, I'd like to do a full DTM,
right,
like tribute car, full livery, convert the front to E36 coilovers, get real aggressive with it.
That'd be awesome.
Track it and do some hopped up motor and
dude,
like, you know,
that'd be awesome.
We'll see what happens.
And that's another platform that can go either way. Even a W124 Cooper sedan could be, like a real aggressive static low car that you could also drive the tires off of.
Right.
Or you could bag it and it still looks just as good bagged. So it depends. It depends on two things. It depends on the car, but if the car could go either way, it depends on my mood.
Yeah.
It depends on like what mood I'm in when I see the car and I'm like, we're going to spin the wheel.
And then you finish it
back.
And then you change it up and go the other way.
Or just sell it first. Yeah. I don't ever keep it long enough to switch it up.
Who knows?
I thought about with the front end suspension and rear end suspension work on the Corvair, I thought about, oh, you know what, this would be kind of a cool, like really, really low static car. But then I was like, to be drivable, someone could just cut the springs in a Corvair and just drive it that low.
Yeah.
Like an early model. Like I know a couple guys that have an early model Corvair that just have cut springs and they drive like pretty close to the ground, but you can't lay them out. That's why we got so much work into the suspension of that car, because to get that last inch, we had to rebuild and redesign everything. It's just everything bound up and nothing would get the range of motion it needed. So that's what kind of kept me from doing that. I'm like, well, you could just like cut the coils in a Corvair and just drive it that low, but to lay it flat out required a ton more work. Have you seen people sharing around that really, really nice white late model Corvair that's bagged?
I don't
stock
think
roof.
so.
It's on a 5-spoke split wheel. They almost look like Modenas. It's beautiful. Like and it's not finished yet, I don't think, because the bumpers aren't on it. But people have been tagging me left, right, and center.
Oh yeah.
In this car. It's a beautiful car, but there's a guy out there that's building a front cross member that's like a bolt-in kit, almost like a Porterbuilt type kit for Corvairs. And it's unbelievable. Everything's tubular. Everything's like Heim joint or high misalignment joints. Everything's like a real race looking setup. And I don't know how much it is. I think it's like $2,000 or $3,000 for this front.
Oh yeah, I can only imagine.
Maybe even more than that. And I think this car might have that in it. I don't know. But the guy that built it is on like a Corvair forum that I'm a part of, and he does phenomenal work. And his car doesn't lay flat out, but his is bagged and it looks amazing. But this white one that came out, that's been kind of going around the internet a little bit, there's a side shot of it and the rear is like laid out and the front isn't quite laid out. And I'm like, I know exactly where you guys either stopped or where you said it was good enough, because we went through that same thing. And when we set it down off the lift, I was like, I looked underneath the car. I'm like, it's got to touch.
Yep.
It's got to touch. And we built 3 front ends in that car. It was our third one. It was one of those like measure 5 times, cut once type deal, and still kept coming up short because once the car was down off the lift on the ground, it was just behaving differently than it was when we were like putting jacks underneath the suspension and compressing everything. So third time was the charm. When we set it down and the car touched the shop floor, I was like, finally, we had like, a couple weeks worth of R&D and execution, fabricating these front ends and
then pull it back apart.
So this white one I've seen, it's just got a little bit of reverse rake, and I'm like, if the front was touching the ground, it lays flat, because mine lays flat. And that's not to say like mine's better than this one. I actually prefer this white one to mine because it's like a beautiful car and it looks amazing. Because I look at my car all the time and be like, no, I'd never ever paint my car. I mean, that would be complete sacrilege. I think that car has the most character in the world the way it is. But I always wonder, like, man, it'd be pretty cool to see a roof chopped bodied Corvair that was like real nice paint. Right. It'd be really cool. So that's why I've always said, if I did another Corvair car, other than like a ramp side or a Greenbrier van, those are on the list too. If I did another sedan, I'd want a real nice one, nice paint. That was like buffable, even if it's original paint. But I want to do a 4-door really bad. Yeah. It's a longer car, still no B-pillar though. Mm-hmm. So when the windows are down, you've got a 4-door, like holiday coupe looking setup, holiday
Yeah.
sedan technically.
Yeah.
But I'd like to do a nice Corvair that still lays body. That was just like a nicer version. But to do a 4-door, to switch it up from a 2-door basically.
Yeah, I like the 4-doors too.
Yeah, yeah. We'll cover a few more questions. We've been expanding pretty well on some of these. There's a few BMX questions I'll probably end with. I think we covered a couple that were for you, the 190.
Yeah.
Let me see. Automotive. Well, we got one from juicebox.jp. Says, biggest inspiration for who you are today and inspiring your passion. Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Man, I'll start with, and we could both answer this one. Biggest inspiration for who you are today, inspiring your passion. So one, my father, straight up. Like my father is the inspiration for who I am today, because it's a typical story. You hear it from a lot of people. It's like your typical, I don't know, father-son story, I guess. But the values my father instilled in me have transcended through my adulthood. And I am grateful for that. And that has, now my life experiences and being on the road and traveling and meeting a lot of people have shaped who I am today, because I've met people that are still my friends, but I've met people that live certain lifestyles where I'm like, that's not for me. That's not for me. Definitely for me. You know, like I've, as we all have done. But for sure, my father, I have a close relationship with my father even today. Him and my mother are literally the only reason why I still live in New Hampshire. I mean, being able to work out of his shop is a big blessing as well, but I enjoy being around them. But I'd say my father, but as far as inspiring my passion, it's my friends. It's my friends who are also artists or artisans, or people who are skilled at something and they work hard to sharpen that skill, or work in an industry that it's been a dream of theirs to be in that industry, and they're making it happen, and all their hard work is paying off. And that is inspirational to no end.
Yeah, I totally agree with that as well.
Yeah, I mean that is, because as I grow up, as we both grow up, as I grow as an adult, and I've already quote unquote flown the coop, flown the nest, whatever you want to call it. Even though I still have a good relationship with my father as adults now, it's still father-son, but it's like,
of course,
I tell my dad a lot of stories now, now that I've been able to see more of the world physically than he has, but his wisdom is definitely transcending for sure. I mean, I try to sit down and be a sponge and absorb when he talks about any of his experiences or even his outlooks. But yeah, my friends, for sure. That's crucial. That's definitely crucial. I feel like I reach deep a lot solely because I live alone, again, as we talked about, in a small town, and I work from home too. So I don't work with a group of people that I get to seek inspiration from on a daily basis. So I have to seek daily inspiration from myself, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I have to dig deep through music. I mean, music's a huge motivator for both you and I.
Yep.
I know that for sure.
Yep.
Both from writing music and just listening to music. So I'm a huge music nerd. Music shapes my life.
Yep.
So, I'm sorry if I answered if I answered for you too.
No.
That's where I see you nodding your head the whole time.
No.
But yeah, that's for sure. Friends and music.
Yep. Definitely the same for me. When I was growing up, my uncle was huge. My grandfather was into cars. He basically was the one that got me into cars, but growing up with my uncle, he was the one that basically showed me how to take things apart, and if I did take things apart, to put them back together.
Yeah, exactly, because that's the easy part.
And to put the tools away when you're done, and that sort of thing. But
I'm glad I was taught that too, because if I wanted to use any tools in my dad's shop, they needed to go back where I found them, cleaner than when I found them.
Yeah, exactly.
And if I didn't, and heaven forbid they were found on the floor. Like if a tool was found on the floor, even if it was just a wrench, that does not belong on the floor. Yeah. Because the way my dad saw it, and I never thought about this until I was older. I'd always heard it, but I didn't understand it until I was older, was that tool for years, even before I was born, put food on my father and my mother's table.
Exactly.
And then my table when I was a kid. I didn't look at it that way. I looked at it as that's just a tool that takes that size nut off of that size bolt. You know what I mean? Like
I grew up hearing the same thing, and I never got it until now. I've paid for all my tools in my toolbox.
Right.
And I get it.
Yep.
I can't do my job without those tools.
Exactly. And you can't eat without those tools.
And you can't eat. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was the same way.
Yeah.
And so when I step into a shop or a friend's shop, I mean, I know plenty of my friends off the top of my head right now that I'm thinking of, but I walk into their shop or their garage and there's just tools strung out all over the floor. That's how they work. That's fine. It's their shop. It's their tools.
Totally.
You can put that tool wherever you can flush it down the toilet for all I care. But when I see that, I immediately revert back to being like a 10 to 12-year-old kid trying to wrench on my bike and leaving like a 9/16 wrench laying on the floor. Not good.
Yeah.
Like not next time I need that wrench, I can't even borrow any tools because I left it on the floor.
Exactly.
So when I see like tools strewn out about all across the floor, I'm like, how could somebody work like this?
Yeah, I'm the same way. And even when I'm taking things apart, I'm very methodical about how I lay them out to the point where like everyone that I've worked for has pointed that out in me. Like Justin, just the other day, I had a bunch of, I'm taking apart a 2002 right now, and I just have everything like categorized as I take it apart.
Yep.
And he's like, wow, this is very methodical. And I'm like, yeah, so I remember how to put it back together.
Exactly. I mean, now that we've got such good photo capabilities with our phones, I've gotten into, because I don't work in that industry every day. I mean, and you've worked on some projects with me, so you know that like I have very little patience, and when I see it through, I can do it. Because like the Century, like I built by myself. Like,
you did. Yeah.
I just got it done in like a 2-week period. But I just my patience. I couldn't be an automotive tech, or I shouldn't like dissolve you down to a tech. I couldn't do what you do. Whereas I'm working on cars, especially I've seen the photos you've been posting of that 2002. It looks stubborn. Looks like it's real rusty. It looks like it's got a lot of stubborn parts. I'm not wired to fight with like nuts and bolts all day long.
Yeah, and not to bunny trail totally, but the thing about cars like that is people have already been into them and like attempted to fix them incorrectly. So now I have to go back in, and that's annoying just on its own. That's a whole nother story.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, so for me, it's just a patience thing. So being able to watch, guys like you and other people that do it every single day, it's like, all right, I'm not doing this every single day. So this is why I like get frustrated easier, but it allows me to be like, just stick through it. Cause you don't have to do that like next week. Just do it this week, get the project done, stick it out. And then, I mean, and I've been doing this for, I'd say 11 years now. I've been like wrenching on cars now. It was, I mean, I always did like oil changes and brake jobs and like this. I grew up in a garage basically. You know, my dad owned an automotive business. So if like my Toyota Corolla that I had when I was riding BMX needed brakes, I did brakes.
Right.
You know, my dad would help show me how everything went together, how it came apart or whatever. But now as an adult doing that stuff, you know, a decade into like not just maintaining my cars, but modifying them and building parts and like understanding geometry, like suspension geometry, and how I don't build motors or anything like that. I haven't like done any projects where I've built a motor for anything, but mostly suspension work and like modifying body parts and stuff. I've gotten to the point now where going back to disassembly and reassembly, I've gotten good about taking photos of everything as it lies.
Yes.
Take everything out, take another photo, lay everything out, like stack everything up the way it came out, take a photo. Mm-hmm. That way, if it accidentally gets knocked over, I can look at the photo again. And I'm like, that washer goes there. Right. That bushing went on the outside, and it's all from experience. You know, now I'm understanding. Like my dad didn't go to. So, I'll finish the sentence. My dad didn't go to school for any of that. Right. He just started working on people's cars to make money and just had to figure it out. And a good example of that is, and you already know this, but I just did an inner door handle cable and inner door handle cable on a power lock truck. So my F-350 dually.
I was going to bring this up, but I knew it was a sore subject. Look at your face. I wish people only listening to this could see your face right now.
Oh my gosh. So on the subject of not having patience to work on cars that are being stubborn. Good heavens. So last week, and people who do this every day are like, what's the problem?
Yeah.
Like, just pull your finger out and do it. So my F-350, my 7.3 diesel truck that I have now, is a power lock, power window truck, 93 Ford. Now, all you guys out there that have power lock and power window OBS Fords that have taken a door card off, you guys already know. I applaud you for, and I know you're applauding me right now. You're clapping because even when I first posted that I had to do a door handle cable with power locks, which make all the difference in the world,
Yeah.
and a power window motor and regulator system, I got an overwhelming amount of messages on Instagram that just said Godspeed,
Yeah, for real.
RIP. Just good luck. Nice knowing you.
Yep.
Sell the truck. Like just don't get the drill out. Everything's riveted.
Yep.
And so I was like, whatever. Like, we're in the middle of this quarantine thing. I'm going to buy the parts. Like, it was one thing. The window wasn't working on our drive home from Chattanooga. So every toll booth that we had to stop at, I had to open the door or what, you know, and I was like, that's going to be annoying.
Right.
But, like, it's not at the front of the list right now. Then a week after being home, I took the truck into town to fuel it up, and the door handle cable snaps. So, like, I go to open the door, and I'm like, well, now I have to slide over to the passenger side to get out. And even just moving it around the yard, I would accidentally shut the door, and I'm like, I can't get out now. I got to shuffle over to the passenger side.
Yeah.
So,
because you can't just put the window down and open from the
Right.
outside because the window's broken too.
yes. And when you open the smoker window, I couldn't reach all the way around.
I'm sure you tried too.
Kind of.
Yeah.
And the face I made then looked worse than the one I just made when we started talking about this.
Of course.
So, oh my gosh. So here's the worst thing, and the worst thing wasn't that I had to scoot over across the whole truck and get out the passenger side. That's fine. The worst part of it was knowing that now I have to take that door card off to fix the door cable. And now when I do the door cable, I just have to do the window motor and regulator too, right? Because I'm in there.
You have to.
Because more than likely, the window regulator and motor have to come out to even get the stupid door handle cable in. Now, I thought when I took that door card off for the first time, which was fine, the screws and pins and, you know, like pop pins and stuff, that's fine. Once I got the door card off and I looked at the cable, I'm like, oh, no sweat. It's a cable with a ball on the end and it just fits in. And then I look down inside to where it goes inside like the door handle and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. How can you get to that? So I started watching a YouTube tutorial on how that comes out. Heck no. Everything has to come out.
Yeah, the opening to the video is tools needed, a drill.
You're
yeah, like, wait a minute.
Tools need a disconnect battery.
Oh no.
Oh no. That's what I said. I don't want to do this. So I got into it, right? Oh my gosh. I can't. I apologize.
Step 1, remove cab off of frame.
Step 1, take Advil. Step 2. So, yeah, step 2, Goose Fraba. So I got into this thing and I started watching a YouTube video of a guy doing this and I realized, oh my gosh, this is insane. Everything's got to come out. So if it's a power lock, plot twist, there's a servo motor down at the very bottom that you just can't get to.
It's in the abyss.
And it's riveted in there. And I didn't realize it was riveted in. I mean, there's a rivet on the outside, but I thought the servo motor would like snap in and out because there's like a harness down there and you can't unplug the harness where it's set. You just can't get your fingers in. There's just no way.
Yeah.
So this servo must come out and there's a rod that comes up off the servo that comes up to the door handle mechanism. Then there's a rod that comes off the lock tumbler. Then there's a rod that comes down from the lock, the manual lock on the top of the door. Then the cable meets that. And all of these things, all of these rods just have a little bend, a little hook in them. And if you move it just right, that little hook falls out. And you're like, oh, where do you go, little hook? I have no idea.
Down.
and if you go in, which in the rod has like 8 bends in it and they twist and they go, it's like, oh, how did you come out?
Yeah.
So talk about taking photos. I'm in there with a flashlight and my camera trying to like take photos of like where every rod went. I'm like, this is futile. This is all falling apart.
Yeah.
Because the videos I was watching, they're like, make sure you hold all the rods. There's about 4 of them. And you got to hold all the rods together to get them out. And the only tutorial I could find or the walkthrough because I didn't want to break anything.
Right.
Then I would really be mad. So I wanted to watch these tutorial videos of these guys taking these things apart to make sure I didn't miss any hidden screws or something, and to make sure I knew that prying on something was just because it was stubborn.
Right.
Not prying on it and then breaking something
Yes.
and being like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. So I was trying to school myself and learn as much as possible about this before I got into it. And that was stressing me out more because I realized how much of a serious job it was. So I get it out. I was going to do the cable first because it was obvious that you could do the cable and then do the window motor regulator and all that, like with the cable and door mechanism in.
Right.
So I wanted to at least get that done first because this was clearly it was an overcoming for me. Like, it was like, this is gonna, like, I'm gonna do this first, and then I'll give it a couple days before I do the window rig. I'll like recoup from this.
Yeah.
Then I'll do the window regulator and stuff. So, and people who have done this and just breeze through it because it's their job and they're on the clock, they're like, just do it, you idiot. But I don't like doing this kind of stuff. So I got the whole door handle out. I got the rods out finally. Oh, and I ended up like breaking the servo mount because I couldn't find a walkthrough. The only walkthrough I could find was for a manual window. I scoured the internet to try to find, like, what about the power windows? How does this stupid servo come out? You have to drill that rivet out, but I didn't know that. So I thought it popped out of its holster, and it didn't. And when I pulled on that, I broke the rod that goes down into the servo. So I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. So I get it all out, get all the rods out. And that, you had to like twist, and the hole it comes out inside the door is like not shaped the way the mechanism shaped. So you got to play Tetris. It's like putting a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
Finally got it out. Got the cable. You obviously put that into the cable in first because that's the whole point. You got to get that thing out. So because you got to take this hood off, and you got to get this like the spring unhooked, and you got to get the cable out. So it presses in. There's a plastic end. The cable protrudes. You hook the cable, the ball end of the cable in. Then where the housing starts, there's a little groove, and you press that groove down into a metal clip holster.
Right.
And my dad, at that point, my dad was just down at the shop tinkering on something else. And I had just gotten it out. And when he showed up, I vented. I said, this is why I don't do this for a living. Because I would not, this is why I didn't work for you in your shop when I was a teenager. This is why I worked in bike shops and didn't make as much money, because I'm not wired for this. I'm not wired for it. So he was kind of laughing, and he's like standing over me, just kind of sipping on his coffee or something as I was doing this. And I had it on the floor, and I was putting this cable in, and I got the ball end in, and I'm pressing. Did I tell you this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, good. So I'm pressing that into the holster, and the whole plastic piece snaps right in two.
Yep. For no reason.
Just no reason at all. Not a single reason why it would do that. And now I understand plastic and how it can be brittle sometimes. I work with acrylics, with the laser. I know. So I'm going easy. I'm not using a screwdriver. I'm not using any sort of leverage. I've got both of my thumbs, no gloves. So I knew what kind of pressure I was, and I was just kind of moving it back and forth, nice and easy, massaging it in there, and the thing snaps in half. It's all over. It's all over. And thank God my dad was standing right there.
Yeah.
Because I would have acted like a child and thrown that whole mechanism into the woods as far as I could.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have, but I was just so incredibly frustrated.
No,
I was like, because
know.
I just went through all of this work, and I had broken the little rod off on the servo, and that like made like the boiling meter was like right there, and it was on its way back down, and then that cable snaps, and I'm like, oh, of course. Why would that have not snapped?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had to order, and work has, on a more serious level, work had stopped for me, so I was stressing about that.
Right.
And these stupid cables are like $25, and now I've got to spend another $25 to order another one. So that's a $50 cable now. So that was the first thing. And then I got the window. After all that, getting it all back in and getting all the rods in the right place and getting everything all hooked up was another nightmare.
Yeah.
But then doing the window, after drilling all the rivets out that I needed to drill out, and I didn't, so the window regulator and motor, as most of you know who've done this on an OBS Ford, come with rivets again. And I was like, heck no, I'm going to do everything I can. And it took some serious finger contortionist movement to get bolts in and put nuts and lock washers on all that stuff. Because if it ever has to come out again, you best believe I'm not drilling rivets out again.
Yeah.
I'm just going to take it apart. So I was able to get it in with bolts, and I felt good about that. Everything works freely. Door opens. And it wasn't until like the fourth or fifth time I'd gotten out of the truck, and I can't believe I hadn't thought about it. But the fourth or fifth time I'd gotten out of the truck, I stopped and took it all in. I'm like, oh yeah, I put I put my mental health on the line to fix that, and now I can just get out of the truck as if like you just open the door and it just opens.
Works now.
And now I'm like, oh yeah, that feels really good that thing opens finally. I did that.
Yeah,
that was my victory of the day.
Yeah,
for sure. And well, it turned into like a 2-day deal because I had to wait for the new cable to show up, but I had plenty of people. I posted a story on Instagram of the 2 window regulators next to each other, and I said something funny about hating life or something, and I was like, well, at least the door handle cable's in. And I had a ton of people that messaged me being like, yeah, screw those things.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, man, I would have paid my local mechanic to like do that. But like, here's a bunch of money. Here's $400. Like, just do it. I don't care if it takes you 15 minutes to do it. But I don't even remember what question we were on.
I don't either.
But we got lost.
Yeah.
Inspiring our passion.
Yeah, that's a bunny trail.
We got talking about working on stuff ourselves.
Right. No,
that was the most recent victory that I had. That it tested my patience like nothing had tested my patience in a long time. Just it's the small things, you know.
Yeah,
it's those small things that just fight you and take forever. Because I told my dad, I said if I started my own shop and I was a sole proprietor and I had billed this job out, and it took me 3 or 4 times the amount of time, first of all, that I could be onto another job and getting paid for, but also that cable snapping.
Right.
And like, it would have been small scenarios like that have happened with me with the laser business too, where like something won't go right and I've got to backtrack and I've wasted materials and wasted time. And so I get a small taste of that, but yeah, like when parts are involved, like having to keep buying parts, and my dad, again, being a voice of reason and a voice of wisdom, will say time and time again, he goes like, if you had the amount of time, if you had the time for me to sit down and tell you about all the times that I can even remember, because he's forgotten most of them over 45, 50 years, he said the amount of times that happened to me where I did lose money, where I build this job out, something broke. I had to buy more parts. It's on the lift for 3 days now, and I can't get anything else in, and I've lost all that money, and now I'm playing catch up, paying for all the stuff I had invested that I was over my head in on this other job. And I'm like, you're right. And this was in like the 70s. The first year my dad opened his business, my grandfather was a builder. He was a general contractor. He built houses. He built condos. He was a very, how should I word this? He was well known in my area. Like he'd been building for years, is basically what he had done for years. And my dad and my grandfather didn't have like a toxic relationship, but my dad just decided when he got out of high school that he was going to start his own thing. He wasn't gonna slam nails anymore. He was just gonna he was gonna do something else. He was gonna work on cars, and stepped out. And that was like my grandfather, who ruled with an iron fist, like very traditional 1950s father,
right?
Did not support that in any way. It's like, well, good luck.
Yeah,
that's it. Wasn't going to show him a thing. And I'm close with my grandfather too. And he went easier on me because once, those men had grandkids, they softened up quite a bit,
Of course.
Even though he's still battle hardened from, he was born in the 30s, those guys are cut from a different cloth.
Yeah.
But my dad's first year in business, basically not disowned, but left on his own, like stepped out, like no help from family. Where I feel grateful because my dad's helped me with a lot. I think that's why, because he's like, I had to do everything on my own. I'm going to help my son, and anything he's interested in, I'll help him to, because that's, if I had a son, I'd want to help, be like, I learned this, this is the correct way to do it. Don't fumble your life. Let's, I'll help you you should do the work, but I'll guide you through type deal. So my dad's first year in business, I think it was 1975. And he signed a lease and rented a local garage here in town that had gas pumps. So he was going to do the gas thing as well as run 2 bays himself and work on cars. That first year he opened his business was the year we had the gas shortage.
Oh, yeah.
Literally opened his doors, gas shortage. Nobody's driving, nobody's working on stuff.
Yep.
Like he said, literally he stepped out and him and my mom got married right out of high school. Well, they were like 20 and 21, I think. So my dad worked for my grandfather for a few years outside of high school. But the year he started his business was the year they were married. They were married in 1975.
Yep.
And now they're newlywed in the mid 70s when life wasn't that grand. You know what
right,
I mean? You had
right.
Like
it was a hard time.
Yeah, low to middle class had to really work and grind their knuckles to the bone to survive. And now there's a gas shortage. And my dad, I remember him telling me, like, when they first got married and they moved into the first house that they rented, they didn't have anything. They didn't even have a dining room table. They didn't have a couch. They didn't have anything. They ate their dinner like on the floor basically. And well, I mean, he ended up building a dining room table,
Right.
And they had a table, but they didn't have a couch. It wasn't like they didn't have a TV or anything like that. It was bare essentials, let alone going out to eat or going to the movies or anything like that. So the first 10 years, my parents were married before they had me. They were married for 10 years before they had me. It was like not a walk in the park type deal.
Right.
So anyway, yeah, when he started business, it was a whole different ball game. Just a hard time to start life. And like he was telling me when I was frustrated with the stupid door handle on this truck, he's like, all of this was going on around me. I didn't have any money. I was broke. I just got married to your mom, and I'm trying to be the man of the household, and like as you did in the 70s, and like step up and provide for the family now. And now there's a gas shortage. No one's spending any money, and now he's losing money on a job because he's learning as he goes. He goes, there was no YouTube. So I couldn't just like Google how to do that. He goes, I had to like open that door card up and just figure it out. And I was like, yep, you're right. And in the 70s, that's when we were in the middle of like everything was vacuum now and everything's like going to this weird archaic electronics. And yeah, so I completely empathize with where he was at.
Yeah.
How he had to like, so when he traverses some of these things that we're working on together, I'm like, yeah, he's battle hardened in that sense.
Exactly.
Like, he's got way more patience than I do because I've had it easy in comparison to him. Yeah, he'd have to look at it and be like, I have to figure this out because I have to eat at the end of the week.
Yep. But now he knows it because he had to do it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And luckily, he's the kind of man where he's like willing to help me and not be like, good luck, Junior. You know, there you go. Figure it out.
You're going to learn.
Type the deal. Figure it out.
Figure it out. There's one Letterkenny reference.
You squeezed it in. If Mason's listening to this or watching this, you got it, Mason.
Got it.
we didn't even talk about fitting a Letterkenny reference in there.
No.
So
Nope.
if you listen to Letterkenny, if you watch Letterkenny, see, I don't even know. I've never watched a single episode of Letterkenny. I've watched. Did you show me an episode or just those like teasers?
We started with the teasers and then we watched episode 1, which is all on YouTube, anyways.
That's right.
Yeah.
So now let me be clear. I don't dislike Letterkenny. I just haven't gotten into it. So Mason and Corey are like huge Letterkenny nerds. And I knew Mason was from a distance. Mason lives in Chattanooga. But Corey and I spent 2 weeks with Mason and Carly in Chattanooga. So Corey already, with the two of us hanging out, already drops the Letterkenny like references, like figure it out and all these other things. So I get it. I don't laugh as much because they're kind of like inside jokes that I'm not a part of. In a way, it's funny. The accent's funny. It's funny. And in Chattanooga, Mason and Corey, it was like twofold, and they were just like saying Letterkenny stuff left, right, and center.
Yeah.
Now, what's the guy's name that does that?
Wayne.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a character named Wayne, and if you watch Letterkenny, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And they start these like monologues with so I was going here the other day or something. Like he does.
No, that was good. That was good.
Mind you, I'm not. It's only a bad. Oh my gosh, it's. I've never seen it, so I don't know how they do it. But I've heard them do it enough, and I've seen like photos and like quick clips of this guy doing that.
Yeah.
So at the end of our 2 weeks in Chattanooga, Corey was actually in the bathroom, and Mason had come out of his room, and I'm standing there with my hands on my belt buckle. If you guys are watching on YouTube, you know exactly what's going on. I was standing there with my thumbs like in my belt buckle, like Wayne does on Letterkenny, and I was like, "So I heard a Letterkenny reference that I didn't understand the other day," and like Mason fell to the floor, like rolling on the floor laughing, like. Mason lost his marbles.
Yep, I heard him screaming my name from inside the bathroom.
Yeah.
I'm like, something's going
He's
on
like,
out there.
Corey, where are you? Because I didn't engage in this the whole 2 weeks we were down there because I just kind of like roasted you guys.
Yeah,
like,
you got it,
like,
but you didn't feed into it.
No.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh yeah, you guys are funny, or I'd like fake laugh as if I knew. Like you guys said, I'm like, you guys, you haven't seen it. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, of course I haven't.
Yeah, I know.
So then I pulled this out like out of nowhere, and it was literally off the cuff. I didn't even think about doing it until I did it. I was just like, I had like a brief, like I was just like hyper for a brief moment and just did it. And that's why it was the funniest the first time.
Absolutely.
And Mason lost his mind, and he goes, "Dude, you have to do that when Corey gets out of the bathroom. You just stand right there, just like you did with me." I'm like, "It's not going to be that good second time around."
It was good.
I was like, I didn't even think about it the first time. I just did it. Now I'm going to attempt to do it as well as I did the first time. And so you came out of the bathroom, and and Mason's like behind. I can feel Mason laughing, trying to hold it together. And I said the same thing, like, "So I heard a Letterkenny reference that I didn't understand the other day," and like with my hand up, and you fell to the floor laughing.
I think it was just a stance. Just you nailed it. Not even watching it.
Oh my god!
Yeah, you nailed it.
And so Mason was trying to get me to do it more, and I'm like, I can't. 2 was more than enough. I can't, because then I'm gonna do it wrong. It's gonna continue to get stale.
Yeah.
And you guys are gonna be like, all right,
No,
just don't
man,
do it
it was-
anymore.
it was good.
And you can't do that. I think, and I'm not a comedian, but I understand like what's funny and what isn't funny, and beating it into the ground is not funny. So
Yeah.
I felt weird enough doing it a second time, but luckily it came out, because I'm not good at accents, kind of certain accents, but I'm not good at accents or imitations.
Right.
So
No, you nailed it though. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm glad. I'm glad you both got a good laugh. I thought Mason was in trouble. He was having a hard time breathing the first
Yeah.
go around, but luckily he was losing it the second time around too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that was. I don't even know how we got talking about Letterkenny, but
I don't know.
figure it out. I think you said figure it out.
Yeah.
And so when Mason sat down, we talk about it too, because he was exposed. He exposed himself basically.
Yeah.
When Mason and I sat down for a podcast, you and him had talked briefly before we went live, and I didn't. This was behind my back basically.
Yeah.
That he was going to try to squeeze in as many like Letterkenny references without making them sound obvious as possible before
Right.
I caught on to it. And the first one was figure it out, but he didn't say it with the accent. Now then I went figure it out. He's like, ah, damn it.
Yep. Yeah.
So, So if you're listening to this, Mason, I'm going to make sure you listen to this. I'm going to text you after this and be like, we've got some Letterkenny content in here for you.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you guys had a good laugh out of it, because I still haven't watched that yet. And that's the first time I've even imitated that since
Yeah.
Chattanooga, because
Yeah.
it's just, I'm not good at it, and it's got to be organic every time. So that was pretty good. Only got 2 more questions. They're BMX related. We can both kind of talk about this, because you could probably relate some of your motocross days
Yeah.
to some of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're almost 2 hours in. This is perfect.
Nice.
So my buddy Jake Lusona, Jake Break 186, asks, and now let me precursor this. I'm gonna have Jake on the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have
absolutely.
Jake on the podcast. Now, my good friend Jake Lusona is, he's battled with cystic fibrosis his whole life, and I don't know much about this. Is why I want to have him on the podcast, talk a little bit about it. Jake's life has been an incredible journey. Like,
yeah, that's an understatement.
a miraculous journey, like an actual miraculous journey. And I don't know a lot about what cystic fibrosis does, other than completely kills your immune system and basically shuts down your lungs. But it's like he lived with CF for quite a while, and then in his like early to mid 20s, it shut his body down, like out of nowhere. He used to ride motocross. He was super active.
Yep.
And then out of nowhere, it got to the point where he had to walk with an oxygen backpack with oxygen going straight into his nose, and could hardly walk from his front door to his truck. And when he did, he'd sit in his truck for a half hour, recouping from the walk to his truck before he could do anything else. Went from that to being on a machine that was breathing for him because his lungs had failed.
Yes.
He was on full-blown life support, and he needed a double lung transplant. And I think, we'll talk about more of this in detail, but he was basically in his late 20s. It was like 28, late 20s. Not at the top of the list for a double lung transplant. Like probably near the end of the list. Because the older you get, you don't take as much priority as young people do. So long story short, he was basically given a week to live. Like basically they were like, there's nothing we can do.
Yeah, it's insane.
He was basically given the news like this is it. And I think about this a lot, and I think it's going to be a real deep podcast. And I would have had Jake on, but with what's going on right now, with someone who has literally zero immune system, is not leaving the house.
Right.
Like, and he cannot, because the common cold can kill him.
Right.
let alone the flu, which will definitely kill him, pneumonia for sure, and this coronavirus thing going around would just be a death sentence. So he's naturally not going anywhere. But with basically a week to live, a miraculous donor came in. Double lungs, both lungs.
Dang.
Now, they weren't out of the woods yet. Apparently, and you guys will have to tune in to like get the actual words from Jake, but I'm pretty sure it was, if not worse than, a 50-50 chance of survival. Because at that point, your body has to take to the lungs. Like your body has to accept. I mean, they cut him open, separated his ribs, or maybe they didn't separate. I think they went in from underneath his ribs. But they took his lungs, both of them, out of his body and put 2 other lungs in from a man who had died and donated his organs. And they hooked them up.
Yeah,
they put him in his body and they hooked up everything like a mechanic puts a motor in a car and sewed him up. And he lives... Dude, it's been maybe 5 or 6 years since the operation, and he's riding motocross.
Yeah.
You've met him.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's high flying on his dirt bike. He's snowboarding and skiing in the winter.
Yep.
He's back working. Like, he is literally a walking miracle. And he's not the only one out there.
No.
But he's the closest to me of a walking miracle that I know. And I use his story and his outlook on life and his motivation.
Yes.
And is astounding, is actually astounding. It blows my mind. It blows my mind his integrity and his giving nature. And like within the first year he was out of the hospital after his operation, we were out to eat somewhere. There was a few friends and I and him, and he was out of work, obviously. I mean, he's the medical bills, I can't imagine what the medical bills were.
Yeah.
On life support for I don't remember how long. And then the operation itself. And obviously he's getting aid through a lot of this stuff, as one does through health insurance or healthcare and all this stuff. But anyway, wasn't working because he's still like recovering from a double lung transplant.
Yep.
So he's not making any money. He's not working. And none of this stuff. And bills are coming in left, right, and center, I'm sure. And we're out to eat. And behind me, off to the side at a booth, is an elderly couple. And they're just having a chat, sitting down for dinner. And we were getting ready. They were getting ready to leave. I think their bill had just showed up or whatever. And Jake doesn't say a word. I see him reaching in his wallet and he's kind of going through his wallet. And I'm in the middle of telling a story as I do or whatever. And Jake, we have a pause in like communication or the story or whatever. And Jake just gets up and walks over and I just kind of watch him. And he walks over to their table and puts a 20 on the table and just says, "Hey guys, dinner's on me tonight."
Dang.
And just kind of walks back over and sits down. And I was like, "Oh, do you know them?" He's like, "No, I just felt compelled to pay for their dinner." And I was like,
Jeez.
I was like, oh, and I'm like having a hard time. I'm like getting choked up as I'm telling a story.
Yeah.
But like, I was like, what, man? Like, dang, man. Like, dang. Seriously.
Yep.
Like that. So when I wake up in the morning, and I've already complained to you today about it, like my back is hurting me especially bad today.
Yeah.
Like, and I know yours bothers you too all the time.
Yeah.
But like I pulled a muscle in my back, and it's been pretty painful all day. Even as we sit here, I'm like, oh, just go away. But when I wake up in the morning and I've pulled a muscle or something like that, and I freak out, or I'm just like, not freak out, but I'm just like bummed, and I'm like,
right.
Oh,
It's annoying.
I'm complaining about it and stuff. I think about Jake. About Jake, and I'm like, it's not that bad. And so he's my example, my friend that is that walking example of you don't have it so bad.
Right.
And Jake would be the first to say, I don't have it so bad.
Right.
There's someone out there that has it worse than me.
Yep.
There's some people out there who need a double lung transplant who don't get it and they don't make it, type deal. So
right.
Anyway, about his question, I'm gonna have, and Jake listens to the podcast and he'll like reshare on Instagram that he's listening to the podcast and stuff. And I was like, dude, I said, if you're into it, I'd love to have you on the podcast. He's like, really, me? And I'm like, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Like, we got to talk about your story. If anyone listening to this is searching for an inspirational story to like pick yourself up out of whatever dirt you might be caught in or stuck in at the moment, a podcast with Jake will do it, because this kid is a walking example of, how to motivate yourself and pull yourself out of some of the worst
Yeah.
holes, even outside of even his like personal life, outside of the
I know.
the operation that
Yeah.
just like took a nosedive.
Yeah.
We'll cover a lot of that on the podcast too, but like he walked out of the hospital breathing with someone else's lungs inside his body, and his life fell apart outside of the hospital.
Yeah,
in like
I
in
can't-
other
yeah.
capacities.
And it didn't change him.
No,
He's still the same, like he still has the same outlook on life.
it's incredible. He texted me once, and man, we'll talk about this on the podcast, but he texted me once, and this was, man, dude, like he was diagnosed with skin cancer. You know what I mean? Like after there was other things that like were thrown at him, and he texted me one day, and he goes, dude, when can a person catch a break? And I was like, oh man, this is bad.
Yeah.
Like if like Jake doesn't say stuff like that. Like this dude's been to hell and back numerous times on different highways.
Right.
That highway took him to hell. That one took him to hell. And he's come back every single time under the sheer resiliency he's got inside his bones.
Yep.
And to just read a text that said like, when does somebody catch a break, or when can I catch a break or something? And I was like, oh man, like I think like I drove to him, or we met up like that day. I'm like, we're hanging out.
Yeah.
We're getting you out of this, we're going to get your mind on something else type deal. But yeah, that I'm really looking forward to that podcast, because he's got a story that more people need to hear. I think it's a life-changing story. A lot of people might put, and he's got a similar story to a lot of people that have gone through things like he has, but I think it's a story that will help inspire a lot of people.
I think so too.
And serve as perspective, which I think is incredibly important, especially now. A lot of people are in the dumps. They've lost their job. They don't know how they're going to pay their bills. They might be sick themselves.
Right.
Who knows? So I'm obviously not going to be taking any chances, nor will he, to be anywhere near him for the time being. But
Currently. Yeah.
he's on the list to have on here for sure. But his question was, gnarliest BMX slam you ever took, and he put up the horns emoji. So Jake is after his operation, and he got back riding motocross, downhill mountain biking first before he got back on his dirt bike.
Yeah.
Going to the Highland Park all the time. He was going like every weekend.
Yeah.
Downhill mountain biking and straight sending it. He broke one of his fingers, and I can't remember which one it was, but I remember him posting a photo on Instagram with one of his digits at the main knuckle bent right over sideways. Like one of those like horrific, when you look at the photo, you get sick to your stomach.
Yeah.
There's no blood or guts or anything, but you look at that finger bent right over sideways, and you're like, oh, like, oh God.
Yeah.
Like, one of those. And he just, his comment on like Instagram or something was like, sent it today at Highland, and I texted him, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He goes, that ain't nothing.
No, he's
He goes,
living his
he
life.
goes, that ain't nothing. He goes, all that is making me know I'm alive.
Yep.
I'm like, you
Yep.
darn tootin'. You darn tootin'.
Yep.
And so, when I was riding BMX, I had plenty of those injuries where it sucked because it set you back. The pain was one thing, but the recoup time off your bike was what I was most bummed about. I could put up with the pain for the moment, because if it was non-life threatening, I knew it wasn't going to kill me. I kind of put myself in the mindset of pain's just a feeling and it's temporary. We'll get through it.
Yeah.
But what killed me at the time was that I couldn't be on my bike for a month or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way he saw it. He's like, I can ride. They're gonna straighten it, and they're gonna stent it to the next one, and I'm gonna be back on my bike.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yep, you're right.
Yep.
You're absolutely right. So he says, gnarliest BMX slam you ever took. So there's a few, and I covered a couple of these on the last, if not episode 7, because we talked about some BMX injuries, or I did. I'd say for like slam, for an actual slam, it was probably when I was in California in 2005 filming for a clothing company DVD, like a clothing company I was writing for. We were in Los Angeles for a couple weeks, like 10 days or so, filming for the DVD. It's my first trip to California, and we were writing all of those like skate video spots. Mm-hmm. The schoolyards with the asphalt banks, the chain link fences with all the low fiberglass picnic tables that you can put into any configuration you want.
Yeah.
It was an unbelievable day. I filmed half, if not 3/4, almost all of my entire part in the first day we were there. Like everything was just falling into place. All the tricks I was landing everything like first few tries. Everything was going the way I wanted it to. It was like Cloud 9 type trip. In the end of that first day, I was filming a feeble grind to hop up no-footed nose wheelie along this real narrow but tall ledge. And I've probably told you this story.
Yeah.
But I pulled it and we watched the clip back and I realized, I was like, can you guys film it like from this angle instead? And they're like, well, we kind of like it the way it is. I'm like, well, and I could tell they were tired of being at the spot. Like they wanted to move on to a different spot. So I was like, well, I'll give it 5 more tries and that's it. If I don't pull it in the next 5 tries, we'll move on to the next spot. We'll use the angle that we filmed it at. So 1, 2, 3, 4, don't happen. 5th try. If you guys know BMX well, and I know I've told this story on the podcast before, but a feeble grind is when you've got your front tire on the ledge and you're dragging your rear peg. So the bike is in like a down, like a reverse rake kind of angle. And then from there, I hop up into a nose wheelie, but in the same motion, I let the seat come up. I sit on the seat and take my feet off at the same time. So I'm going from this reverse rake angle of the bike straight up into a no-footed nose wheelie. So it's this aggressive one angle to another extreme angle.
Yep.
And on the 5th try, in the transition from the feeble grind to the nose wheelie, it bucked me right over the bars, like right OTB as they call it, right over the bars. And I was kind of known in BMX for like doing a lot of nose wheelie tricks.
Yeah.
So I was like, I guess if you could be a veteran as to how to bail out of a nose wheelie, I was one of them. You know,
Yeah.
that's how you got good at nose wheelies, is going over to learn your balance point. But it happened so fast that when I went over the bars, I put my hands up to catch me, but the ledge was super narrow and my hands went on either side, or I think both hands went on one side of the ledge. And before my hands could touch the ground, my face hit the ledge. So it just face went right off the ledge and blew my front teeth out. Yeah. Busted my nose, split my top lip wide open. One of my teeth like went through my lip. That was probably one of the quote unquote hardest slams. I mean, and you guys have heard the rest of that story if you're listening to episode 7 or 8, but basically I had to live the rest of the trip eating through a straw because I stayed in LA the rest of the trip to filming my part with a busted up face with like nerve endings sticking out of the broken tooth. And then my number 10 tooth was bent back into my mouth because it was like it was like broken up in like my skull. And when I got home, I flew home Christmas Eve and my dentist was on holiday until after the first of the year. So I basically went 3 weeks with a busted up mouth, having to like put stuff food in to the back of my molar. That was after I got experienced at eating, because I had to eat through a straw for like the first like week and a half.
Yeah.
And then I had to like, it was all soft foods, liquids.
Man.
But 2 other hard slams that I know off the top of my head that I won't spend too much time expanding on was when I separated my AC joint. I separated my shoulder real bad and my AC joint, and I collided with a kid at my local skate park. And I came off this real steep vert quarter, like a 9-foot quarter pipe, and was headed over to the box jump. And this kid, Corey, was airing over the box jump backwards. Now, some people would just get a run in while someone else was in the middle of a run. It's a small skate park, but I was in the middle of a run and he dropped in basically. And I was heading towards the box jump. He was coming over it the other way. Last second, saw him coming, lowered my shoulder to like, football, hit him kind of.
Right. Just as a reflex.
Head on collision, no brakes, either of us. I was heading up the ramp. He was heading down it, buckled, braced for impact or whatever. And when he hit me, everything let go on my shoulder. It was just like one of those head on collisions. And my shoulder like went to my rib cage basically. And that was a pretty hard slam. But I took a slam at Ryerfield Skate Park in like 2008 that I'll never forget. And I walked away from it and never really spent any time off my bike, but I've got a permanent like calcium deposit on the base of my hand from it. I did a bunny hop truck driver, which to anyone who doesn't know BMX lingo is a 360 spin on your bike while spinning the handlebars. So you're doing a bar spin while doing a 360 rotation on the bike. And I was doing a bunny hop, which was off of no ramp. I was leaving flat ground on top of a ramp. I was on the deck of a big box jump and I did a bunny hop 360 bar spin into the quarter pipe takeoff of the ramp. And this is a trick I used to do all the time. Yeah. And it was a really, it required a lot of muscle to do all of that stuff and land in the transition. Well, when I made 180 degrees at the point where I was backwards and spinning the bars, so my hands were off the bars and my front wheel was spinning, I didn't hop high enough and my front wheel hit the lip of the quarter pipe on my way in backwards with no hands on the bike while the front wheel was spinning. And it sent me, it like slingshot me all the way to flat on the concrete.
Yep.
And my hand came flying up over my head and slapped the concrete so hard that my hand turned black.
Oh,
like
man.
the base of my thumb through the bottom of my palm was like as black as this microphone is.
Yeah.
And I don't know for sure if I broke anything. It wouldn't surprise me if I'd broken some sort of bone like in my thumb or something like that. But I remember that, and it's a good thing I had my helmet on because it cracked my helmet in like numerous places because I slammed my head real hard.
Yeah.
And out of I'd say numerous, but out of the slams, I know for sure I got rocked hard enough to have a serious concussion. That was one of them.
Yeah.
It didn't knock me unconscious. Like I'd been knocked unconscious before a few times, but my hand and my head hit the pavement so hard. It just, it like shattered my helmet, and my hand took just as much of a hit on the pavement as my head did. And so that was a hard slam. That was one that like rocked me pretty hard.
Yeah.
I know I had a concussion, but it didn't knock me straight out. But yeah, have you had any like major hard slams riding motocross, or you kind of gotten lucky?
I got mostly lucky. I mean, there were always slams. There's always times where you leave a jump incorrectly and you come up short at the other end. And
Yep.
as you know, there were slams all the time. If
You ever get bucked? You ever case a landing with your rear wheel and get bucked over the bars?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, that happens on BMX bikes too all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are
Yeah.
the worst. And you know they're going to happen.
Yeah.
Because you're in the air and you know you're coming up short and you're like, oh, and you just kind of like brace for that rear wheel impact. But then when it bucks you, it's like, it's all over. Yeah.
Yeah, and as we used to say when we were riding all the time is if you don't go down during the day, you're not going hard enough. You know what I mean? You're not pushing your limits.
Yeah.
So we went down all the time.
That's the way we always saw it with BMX too. It's
Yeah.
like, well, if you walked away from the day without falling, you had a good day because you pulled everything. But
Yeah.
if you were working on something that you hadn't pulled yet, and you were hitting the ground quite often, you were giving it your all.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. Those are a few of the hardest slams that I took too. One more question, BMX related. BMX SVT 85. So I didn't buy. I got the 205 4017s for the Desmonds off of him. I stopped and saw him on my way to Providence to record my episode with Josh Garcia.
Right.
So huge thanks again for the tires, first of all. JJ is his name. I couldn't remember his name. I'm sorry, JJ. He asks, and he rides BMX.
Yeah.
As the name would give away. Says, did you get the chance to ride the Fenway Trails or Med Banks in Boston? I loved riding there. So, yes, I rode the Fenway Trails. I wasn't much of a trails rider, but the Fenway Trails were small enough to where I really actually enjoyed riding them. A girl I dated I dated a girl from 2004 to 2007 that ultimately went to school at the School Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, right on Park Drive or across. She lived in the apartments on the other side of the park on Park Drive. And that was right near Landmark Center. And that was down the street from Fenway. And that's where the Fenway Trails were. And so I used to go down there for the weekend and visit her, and I'd ride. She'd go to school. If I was down there during the week, she'd all go to class and I'd go ride Boston with friends and stuff. So that's when I'd ride the Fenway Trails. If you're talking about the brick banks at Boston General, I didn't ever get a chance to ride those, unfortunately. I'm old enough to where I should have been able to ride those, but I never made it to Boston while those were still up. And if you guys are unfamiliar with Boston General, one of the parking lots of Boston General Hospital used to have literally a brick skate park. There were brick Volcano quarter pipes in the middle of the parking lot that they had like air purifying units mounted on. And they were like banked to walls and sub boxes. And it was like an actual skate park. Yeah. It was unbelievable. I never got a chance to ride it myself, which is a massive bummer because they quickly tore all that stuff out of there. Once BMX and skateboarding got like real big and more kids started to like ride there and stuff, they tore all that out. But as I've pointed out to you, at the Boston skate park, the new Boston skate park that they built underneath the bridge, they have built a volcano that emulates the volcano that was in the parking lot at Boston General with sub boxes on top that emulate the like AC units or air purifiers or whatever, like same shape and everything. Yeah. So if you remember Boston General and you see that obstacle at the Boston skate park, that's a really cool like tribute to that.
Yeah.
Because someone like me never got a chance to ride the real thing, but now they've like re-emulated the the obstacle at the Boston skate park. So that's pretty cool. So no, I didn't get a chance to ride that spot, but did ride the Fenway trails. And we can go back to Robert's question as to why.
Okay.
I still don't know.
No, I don't know.
And that's where we can leave it. I have no idea.
We may never know.
We may no. We will never know. Hey guys, I appreciate you listening. Glad Corey could be a part of this one.
Of course.
So I wasn't sitting here for another 2 hours just talking to myself. I'm glad we were able to have a good laugh about Letterkenny.
Yes.
That was a good time.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get into the show. I don't have Hulu though. Is that where it streams?
Yeah, it's on Hulu.
Yeah, I don't have Hulu. So R.I.P. me, I guess. Or R.I.P. me whenever anyone has an inside Letterkenny joke.
Yeah.
I still laugh.
I'll sign you in on mine.
That sounds good.
We'll get you in.
I'll watch a few because I have yet.
Yeah,
I have yet to like decide whether or not I really want to get into it because I slowly got into Trailer Park Boys.
Yeah, I never got into Trailer Park Boys, which is
I never.
I can't.
Yeah, see, I never really liked it. I liked Bubbles' character.
Yeah.
So I watched. It became a show that was just on in the background while I was working in the shop. Then I started watching more of it, and yeah, I like oddly enough like wanted to watch more, but I wasn't like really in the Trailer Park Boys.
Yeah.
But when I watch Letterkenny, I almost get that vibe from it. So I think if I watched more of it, I would find myself in the same situation where I was like watching more of it and finding myself liking it more.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Letterkenny, it is kind of an acquired taste, but each character has their own like personality.
Yeah.
That you get to know, and it's like, all right, I can watch this.
You made a spare parts or whatever.
Yeah.
You made a spare parts. Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So, yeah, you're getting them, and then you'll pick up all the other ones.
Yeah. We talked about it earlier. Like I can catch up on all the Office references just because that's what I always have on in the shop or while I'm eating lunch, just on background.
Yeah.
So I'm not an Office fanatic, but I've watched all of the seasons over and over again just as like background noise that I know all of the inside jokes and character development and all that sort of stuff. But hey, man. Weird times again. I hope all of you guys that are listening are well. I hope you're healthy. I hope if you're not working, I hope you are staying optimistic about life. Hope you're not in a deep, dark spot. I hope you've picked up a hobby or home workout routines or something to kind of pass the time. Hope you're not twiddling your thumbs and you guys have some sort of hobby to kind of carry you through this. Hope your family is healthy. I still don't know what I'm going to call this episode. I'm going to come up with a cool quarantine name for it, but
yeah,
I don't know what's next. I'm going to be working on the Century this weekend. I'm going to dedicate some time to working on that. And this is the last month that Corey and I are in our unit, what was originally going to be the TGC garage.
Yep.
We decided to get out of that unit specifically because we were originally planning on moving to Chattanooga, Tennessee, or that area this year. But now I'm happy that we're getting out of that expenditure basically because of where we're at with the coronavirus thing.
Yes.
And since work has slowed down for me specifically, I'm glad. I mean, I'll miss having the shop, but we knew that like Tennessee was kind of, at least for me, was definitely in the immediate future. So we didn't really ever move anything into that shop. We basically split the rent on that place so my 700 could sit in there all winter long.
Yeah, and when we had initially agreed on it, I wasn't working in the shop every day.
That's right.
And that's kind of where I'm putting my time, and that's where my tools are. So
yeah,
it'd be hard to pull my tools out of there. And
it would have been easier to like justify that expenditure if you had moved up here.
Right.
Because that was the plan. The plan was, I mean, I've got an open bedroom in this house.
I know.
The plan was to move up here. You'd be 15 minutes from the shop and not an hour. And to go back to the relationship disaster, we obviously know. Like, that's why you're not living up here and you're still an hour south.
Hindsight is perfect vision.
It is 2020, isn't it?
Yep.
2018, one could argue. But yeah, so last month we're in a unit. So I'm going to get the 700 out of there at some point in the next couple of weeks. And yeah, hopefully I still want to move to Tennessee. Yeah. I'm hoping this stuff kind of blows over and work can pick back up.
Oh, I hope so.
And and feel good about making a move south to warmer weather. There's TGC gear still available, guys, as like an outro to some plugs here. I still have the Purpose and Passion t-shirts available in a handful of different sizes. Some new TGC key rings, TGC stickers. I'm almost sold out of the Anchor vinyl stickers, our Anchor Crest stickers. I only have black left right now. Those have sold well. appreciating you guys buying that stuff, especially now with the current situation we're in. Big announcement. I know a lot of you guys have been asking if it's coming back. I have ordered more of the exotic African Paduke wood that I make the motel key rings out of. The wooden African Paduke wood. It's like a red, orange, very beautiful, vibrant African Paduke hardwood that I make these out of. And if you guys don't know about them, it's a motel room key ring in the old like diamond shape from like the 80s, 70s and 80s, where you'd get a motel room key ring that had the room number on it, and it would say like guaranteed postage at the bottom. And so what I'm doing is I'm making it out of this exotic hardwood. I hand sand them. I polyurethane them so they're like resistant to moisture and the elements and stuff. And each one is a different number. So I've made number 0 through, and I'm going to make through 999. We're in the high 200s, like mid to high 200s right now.
Yep.
But what I've been doing is I've only been making them at like 20 to 40 at a time, and doing like random releases of them. So there's no number requests. The number you get is the number that your order was.
Yep.
So it's funny because I've actually heard stories of people trying to seek out people who have a certain number and like trying to barter and like buy and like trade and all that sort of stuff. So that's really cool. So hopefully by next week I'll have that wood in stock. It's an expensive wood, so I don't stock up on it. But I'm gonna be making another batch of like 20 to 40 of the motel room key rings. I'll be posting those on Instagram, and those are available. I know a lot of you guys have been asking about those. More Anka vinyls. I still have the Riverside TGC collaboration key rings that were only made in a batch of 100. Those are available. So head to the Governors Club link on the Governors Club Instagram, which is just the Governors Club. If you guys are listening on Spotify, there's a link to that web store in the description of this podcast episode. And yeah, what else? Hopefully Rising Sea stuff. I'm gonna push that hard next week. I'm hoping, man, I'm hoping to get some music out to you guys. It's been a dream to have like an EP or an album on Spotify or iTunes, and it's been a 10-year process here, and I still don't have anything to. I've got hard drives full of music.
Yeah.
I'm just the worst. I just don't. That whole sentence is basically a description of how I feel about my music. I don't.
Yeah. No, I get it.
So yeah, so keep an eye on the Rising Sea, guys. I keep trying to plug the Rising Sea Instagram, but I need to post more often there. I really do. I feel like I don't have any like good content to post there, but if you guys check out the Rising Sea, that's my music. There's a link to my SoundCloud on there. There's some unfinished demos. If you like brand new, there's actually like an unfinished demo I started. I recorded a cover of Handcuffs, which is one of my favorite Jesse Lacey brand new songs. And
check it out.
It's kind of in my like style, I guess, Rising Sea style. They're all unfinished demos, but you can check some of that stuff out on SoundCloud to kind of get an idea as to like what's coming for an EP. I think the first one's going to be like an acoustic EP, but yeah, check out the Rising Sea. My business page is Night Laser with a Z. So if you guys have any brands or businesses and you guys need any like leather key rings or merchandise made, hit me up there. Work is slow, so I've got time to take on new work for sure. Limitless Corey, Limitless_Corey
yes.
on Instagram. Any other plugs you want to hit?
No.
My personal Instagram is john.ludwick, JOHN, LUDWICK.
If you want to see what I'm doing every day in my job, it's Preservation AutoWorks. Feel free to check that page out.
Now, is that WERK?
Yes, with an E.
I figured.
Works with an E. Yeah.
I figured that's what it was.
Yeah.
Wanted to make that clear. Yeah, and Justin has some cool stuff in there. Did he sell the E30 M3?
No, that's going on Bring a Trailer this week, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Hopefully he does well with that, because there is still a lot of activity on Bring a Trailer. So
yes, and we've talked to a couple people that kind of specialize in that, and they're saying right now is a good time.
Good.
So we're gonna fire it out there.
Perfect. Hopefully he gets what he wants for it.
Yeah.
And hopefully they agree on a good reserve and all that. So yeah, because I know that's the other painstaking process, is getting them to agree on a reserve that you're happy with.
Yeah.
Because this has to be a reserve that they're happy with.
Right.
So,
exactly.
Yeah. Well, cool. Hey, thanks again for listening, guys. I'm glad we've stuck this out. We're almost to episode 10.
Yeah.
And even though I envision it goes, I mean, if I do one a week, obviously we only get to episode 50 in a year, but like I feel like I'm 4 steps ahead. I've got so many people. I want to do more with you, obviously, but I've got like more and more people I want to sit down and talk to. And it's like I get anxious about it. And now it's more difficult because I can't just like go travel somewhere to do a podcast and have someone here. So for now, I hope you guys are enjoying these like solo, if not Corey and I updates. We'll try to get more content going. If we can try to meet up like once a week, we'll do more like expansion on some of our travels. We'll try to do like the TGC America Tour episode. Like we'll do like a full podcast episode of our coast to coast TGC America Tour that we did last year.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
We'll do a podcast about our 2018 trip to Worthesy when we drove across Europe. Yeah, we'll try to, maybe just for content's sake, because I know a lot of you guys are going stir crazy, sitting at home during this time of isolation. So yeah, maybe we'll try to work something out like that. Like if you've got the time to come up here, we'll record some more of that stuff. So look forward to some of that in the coming weeks. We'll try to regurgitate some like old trips. And if you guys are interested in those trips, I didn't have the YouTube going in 2018 when we did Worthesy. But if you guys want to watch and catch up on some episodes, you can watch my YouTube where Corey and I travel and like document a lot of our travels in the last couple of years. You can go to my Instagram page and there's a link right to the YouTube. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you're already there. Yep. So if you're listening, there's a link to the YouTube and my Instagram, and you can watch all of our shenanigans and travels cross country, abroad, and beyond. So until the next episode, guys, thank you so much. Stay healthy, be well.
Yes.
We will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I don't have to pee. I don't have.
I was going to ask, too.
I'm good. Dude, this is the first episode I haven't been dying of having to pee.
That was a long episode, too.